minutes June 6th and July 11th, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 6th, 2018.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July the 11th, 2018.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Before we get down to business, let me just go through the projected time frame for this evening's meeting. So, the way we have it laid out, Rushy Brook advisory opinion, 50 minutes. Dickinson Development, 10 minutes. SM Trombino Property Solar, 20 minutes. 711B Main Street Solar, Kenyon, 20 minutes. 813 Main Street Solar, Hawkins, 20 minutes. Pre-app, Hopkinton Industrial Park, 15 minutes. Pre-app, 41 Palmer Circle Solar, 15 minutes. Pre-app, 21 Fenner Hill Road Solar, 15 minutes. Pre-app, 310 Main Street Solar, 15 minutes. Anybody have any issues with that? I see none. So that's the way we'll play it. I will be stepping away for several of the applications this evening, namely SM Trombino, South County Solar, Prairie Lane, OSD Development, twice. Notice of refusal for all of those. Which takes us to the next order of business, a public hearing. An advisory opinion for the town council request for a comprehensive plan / zoning map amendment, 130 Dye Hill Road, AP 32 lots 1, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 41, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, 58, 60, 62, 63, 65, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71 Brushy Brook. Southern Sky Renewable Energy, RI LLC applicant. I'll entertain a motion to open public hearing.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Applicant or representative present.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Come forward.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the Hopkinton Planning Board. For the record, my name is Attorney K. Joseph Shikarchi. I represent the applicant this evening, Southern Sky. With me tonight to testify and answer any questions, I have two experts, Dave Russo from Dupree Engineering and Edward Pimento, our land use expert. I also have the principal of Southern Sky here, Ralph Colombo, and his daughter Lindsay McGovern, if the board has any questions. This particular property is a property that is Honorable Planning Board granted master plan approval for an affordable housing complex several years ago. That affordable housing complex is for approximately somewhere over 100 units of housing. It's my understanding that that approval that was granted by this planning board under the state enabling zoning legislation is still a valid master plan approval. My clients are here tonight hoping that we can receive a favorable recommendation from the Honorable Board to go to the Town Council and to make a case before the Town Council of why we think solar is a better use of this property than the affordable housing component that is still active and viable. We think, quite frankly, I can go back to the whole history of the affordable housing component and what it brings to the town in terms of costs, school-age children, police and fire protection, traffic, cost of maintaining the roads after they've been accepted by the town, and the benefits that we think that solar brings in terms of to the town, which is tax revenue, which is after the 25-year use of the property, we return to open space. No police and fire or municipal services needed. We would entertain that. There's no noise. The traffic is approximately once or twice a month. Someone comes out to check the panels. It's a totally self-sufficient, enclosed, no burden on the school system or the town infrastructure. I know that solar has been quite popular here in Hopkinton. I don't have to sit out and talk about the concept, but this is a unique piece of land that has already began and received some approvals in terms of a development, a housing development, and we think and we'd like to have the opportunity to go to the town council and make our basic pitch or argument, legal argument, that we think that a solar field is better for the town than this, and obviously we think it's better for our client to go forward. We've been through the negotiations and the contract with the owner of the property to go forward on this. I have documentation that I can provide if the board wants that says if we're unsuccessful, then he would move forward on his project. So we think this is a better opportunity. I'd like to call Mr. Pimento up and let him explain the consistency with your town comp plan as we see it. And then Mr. Russo, just touch upon the engineering. We'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has or the public has in general. This is Mr. Edward Pimento, and I'd ask at the appropriate time that he be accepted as an expert. He's appeared before many cities and towns as a planning use expert. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Promise to tell us the truth?
I do indeed, sir.
You better, yes. Go forward.
So, when I was asked to get involved in this project, clearly the first thing I consider is the concerns that typically communities, rural communities have, and neighbors, is the issue with the removal of trees, and visual impacts. The project itself is going to maintain a rather wide buffer in perpetuity. The growth there is pretty mature and vast, so I wouldn't even have a concern from that perspective. But the unique aspect of this property is that there is already an approval on site, and the removal of the trees is going to happen in either case. But in this case, not only do you, as council has just stated, is there are no actual fiscal or other resource requirements or impacts to the community, it actually contributes in a fiscal positive manner. And number two, eventually, at the end of the end life of the solar, you actually end up something that actually preserves the property, whereas a residential development is in perpetuity. Once developed, homes remain, it's a continuous fiscal drain on a community. Yes, I do a lot of affordable housing developments in the state of Rhode Island. Affordable housing is needed, but in this case, if you were to ask me, professionally from a land use, good planning practice, which one is preferable? Clearly the solar is preferable. Having said that, right now the regulations only allow solar in the commercial and the manufacturing zones. The only thing I can surmise from that is, given that you have limited commercial and industrial resources, zone resources in town, is that you want to have some kind of regulatory control over the introduction of solar. Clearly, solar projects need large acreage, so they're clearly going to end up located primarily in your residential districts, number one. Number two, I can't believe that you would want to see your limited commercial and industrial zone properties, those that actually are going to provide the fiscal necessities that's required by this community to offset reliance on residential property tax, to be consumed by a solar array project. I can't believe that was the intent. So I can only surmise that it was to have regulatory control, meaning coming before the planning board for recommendation purposes and then making the argument at council for those sites that would otherwise be deemed appropriate for location and then get the corresponding zone change. Having said that, I believe it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. I provided a rather in-depth report for your review, and I believe you can support this, hopefully affirmatively, and offer us a positive advisory recommendation to the town council. If you have any questions.
Very good, thank you. Planning board members, any questions of this?
Are we going to question each person individually?
Whatever you want, sir. Defer to you.
Well, first off, I support totally the right to the use of your land. And I hear you loud and clear that there are different uses to the land that could benefit the town or not benefit the town. I don't want to work backwards, but your contention that there won't be housing here is ludicrous, because as soon as this is decommissioned, it'll be a developer's dream, and they'll walk in and do the houses. So we're just prolonging this for the next generation. Secondly, my main concern is spot zoning. And I heard you loud and clear, we don't want to use up our limited industrial manufacturing land, whatever. But spot zoning rubs against everything I know of planning. And this is an incredibly rural area. This is the most rural area in town as far as I'm concerned. And I just read a thing a couple days ago, Portsmouth did a zone change, and some of the neighbors took it to court, and the Superior Court of Rhode Island deemed that solar projects are manufacturing facilities. So you're not talking about commercial, you're talking about manufacturing in a residential zone. And that's spot zoning to me, and I have a hard time swallowing it. Secondly, the size of this project seems unprecedented. Are there any on the boards in Rhode Island that are almost 58 megawatts? Is that happening right now anywhere?
I know there's solar projects being proposed throughout the state, but I don't want to say are they large or small ones. It's a big size project. I can't tell you it's the biggest or one of the biggest, but it's a big size project. I don't have knowledge of the other.
I want to backtrack a little. I'm sounding completely negative here, but I feel like you put me on the defense.
Okay.
So I do agree, I'm totally for solar, but I'm kind of tired of this, well, you know, you're going to get housing if you don't let us do this. I'm kind of tired of the threats, so that's going to go right over my head. Secondly, you know, we're talking about green energy, who can vote against green energy? Well, the only green I see here is the dollars in the developers and the manufacturers' pockets. I don't see this helping the town. I don't see this helping the town at all. Yeah, there's a little tax revenue from it, woo, you know? And I am not a tree hugger.
No, sir.
And we just don't know how many acres are you cutting here, approximately? 100, 150? I tried to look. We're volunteers, by the way, and this is our stack of stuff for this month.
Sure. So the proposed total solar structure area, inclusive of space in between panels and so forth, is going to be approximately 122.65 acres. The total clearing area, because you've got to clear around with the fencing up as required by law, is 162 acres, or 45% of the site. So 55% of the site is not going to be dedicated to the solar, 45% will be dedicated.
So 160 plus or minus acres are going to be cleared.
Yes.
Which I hear you loud and clear. We've approved the development in there, and most of that would be cleared as well.
Yes.
A little shorter period of time, DEM would be a little more involved. Now I want to get to the DEM issue. I'm a cabinet maker. I've been on the board a long time. I've seen everything. I thought I've seen everything, but obviously I haven't. I used to depend on DEM's knowledge and expertise and experience, but I've lost faith in them over the years. Because what they do is they sit there behind their computers, plug in a bunch of logarithms and say, oh yeah, this isn't going to affect the environment. They don't come down, they don't get their feet wet. They say they do, but they don't. And I just don't have the faith anymore in the regulatory bodies that are going to tell me that this won't hurt the environment. And again, I'm not a tree hugger, and I think you have the right to the use of your land. So those are my concerns. This is massive. This is out of any of our scope that we could possibly think of. So those are my problems.
Let me just speak to the two areas that are within my field. I don't want to speak to DEM because we have an engineer, an expert in engineering, who's an EE, and I don't want to speak to what could happen in the future. I can't predict the future, but the reason why I brought up the residential development, not because of residential development could be an intended use of this property because it's permissive. It's because there is an approved development. That was the only reason why I brought this up. If this was just an undeveloped piece of property with no approvals on hand, I would list it could be residential, it could be this or that. But we have an approval on hand. That's the reason why I brought that up. As for spot zoning, there's a misnomer with spot zoning. Spot zoning is only considered spot zoning illegal if it's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. We're going to also ask for an advisory opinion and concurrently ask for consistency with the comprehensive plan by amending the future land use map. And the reason why we're doing that, and like I said, the only thing I can surmise is why solar is only permitted in your commercial and industrial areas is because they wanted to have this regulatory control and make an individual seek a zone change. A project of this size would consume all your commercial and industrial in one fell swoop. That clearly could not have been the intent, because it's a permitted use. That clearly could not have been the intent, because the way a municipality, especially a rural municipality, offsets its reliance on its residential property tax base when it's predominantly residential is via its commercial and industrial, and true commercial and industrial. Not solar, which is a commercial entity, but a true commercial, whether it be retail, office, et cetera, et cetera. So I've got to believe that was the intent.
When our original solar ordinance was written, it never, ever took into account that it could be a size and scope of a project of this size.
I understand, but the point is when you put P in permitted, you didn't put any specific performance standards stating it can only be of 1 acre size. I didn't think so. Yeah, if somebody comes in an industrial commercial area with a solar array project and it's permitted, it's permitted. I mean, it's going to consume the acreage. Once again, like I said, spot zoning is this urban myth that if you come in and it's the only property in the area zoned as such, that violates spot zoning. That's not the case. And I can give you hundreds of examples of this. Most government institutions are either specified open space or some kind of institutional designation. And they're all over the place at spot zoning. In open space areas, when you plot an open space, it's typically one lot, one large lot. There's hundreds of examples of this. As long as you show and illustrate your comp plan and render it consistent textually and with the future land use map, it is not spot zoning. The spot zoning comes in when you ask for a zone and it's not consistent with your comp plan. That is spot zoning.
I'm not going to debate the comp plan with you. I think it's toilet paper, our comp plan.
Oh, well, I mean,
So-
I have to rely on it.
So what I'm saying is you can take a line in our comp plan and a person can argue for it, a person can argue against it. It's ambiguous, and then, I mean, frankly, I think this is an exercise in futility for the planning board anyway, because the council is just ignoring the planning board right now and rubber stamping these things. So they're just rewriting the comp plan to fit the developer's needs. That renders the comp plan ridiculous to me. So don't even go there with the comp plan.
I'm just bringing what spot zoning. The response.
Done.
I'd like to address the DEM issue that you raised, if you don't mind. And I will tell you that what we're here tonight for, this is the very, very beginning of our process, that if we were to get a favorable recommendation or any recommendation, if we did go to council, we would still have to come back here. We would comply with all DEM regulations. There will be on-site inspections. In addition, I'm going to call Mr. Russo up here as well, but respectfully, they do come out and do, and they would come out and do an on-site inspection, and then we would actually hire independent biologists and everyone else to come out and do that. So this is a project that will go through the full regulatory approval through DEM. Now, you and I respectfully can disagree about the DEM's, competency and value and a bunch of other things, and that's a discussion we can have, but this will be reviewed by DEM.
I don't doubt your intentions at all. I have completely lost faith in our DEM.
I understand that.
And for valid reasons.
Certainly, and I respect your opinion, sir, I truly do. I'd like to call Dave Russo from Decree Engineering.
Well, they haven't.
Oh, sorry.
I think it might be a little premature.
Okay.
A couple more people go.
So I'm sorry.
This is zone residential. The town has decided that it's residential. We don't have it commercial. If we wanted solar there, then the town can decide to zone it commercial. Correct?
Correct?
Right. So right now, today, the town has decided that it's residential. And to your point, sir, we did approve a PUD compound, but that was the town's attempt to balance growth as well as have the environment protected by clustering the homes into allowing more open space. So the town is and the planning board took a very concerted effort to put mechanisms in place to protect places like Bushy Brook. Because we value that balance between having development and protecting the environment. And I would mirror my colleague's view that putting solar on this large parcel is tipping that balance away from balancing the environment along with the development. So that would be my, I'll wait to hear your engineer talk about more of the specifics, but that's just my overview.
And I only have a few comments, mostly to reiterate some of what my colleagues have said. First of all, I was one of the planning board members that sat through this project and its affordable housing approach. And I don't know, this project right here, I feel like this is a personal affront to me. I put countless hours of my time into negotiating the best possible project that I think the town could get under the circumstances. Now we're going to wipe the slate clean, and we're also going to wipe that piece of property clean. That doesn't sit well with me. I want to echo Tom's position that the threat of housing, that doesn't really work here anymore. My town was zoned residential. I acknowledge that. I didn't have a hand in that. It was done before I arrived on the scene. That's what I expect in my community. That's what I think my neighbors expect in the community. They don't expect solar panels. Second item. Third, with regards to the report, there was a representation that there's not going to be any significant visual impact here. I think that was in your report. I want to take exception to that. I'm sure you've read this morning's journal that the state of Rhode Island is using aerial views to bring about greater tourism. Well, while there may be no visual impact from the street, there's going to be a damn significant visual impact from the air. And I don't think that my community, packed full of solar panels, is the way to sell tourism. Lastly, again, I want to echo the DEM thing. This is not, we know very well that you're going to go through all of the agency reviews. I think the point that's being made is that we no longer believe that DEM is looking out for the town of Hopkinton's best interest. Therefore, it falls on the shoulders of this board to go perhaps over and above what DEM is going to do. My thoughts on this.
I'd like to add that I mirror the comments of my colleagues. Everybody in Montpelier, we're more than happy to pay the inflated, well, we're the higher taxes than anybody else. We want to get our money's worth. We're buying our time by paying our taxes. I can't see that this is going to help our community in the long run. You know, the amount of revenue that's going to generate 25 years, I think is going to be offset by what it's going to actually take away from the community. But that's just my opinion. Again, I'm on board 110% with Tom. I'm not a tree hugger.
I respect your opinion. It's a balancing, but you got to look at the cost as well. And if we're talking about the money, and you got to balance the cost of a residential development. And if that's what the town wants, then I understand that. But the reason we're here tonight is there's a process we have respectfully the right to even ask. And I'm sorry you guys get offended we're here even asking, but we have the right to ask for this. And this is part of the process before we go to the city council to come here for a recommendation, be it negative or positive. We think this is good, and I can enumerate the benefits, but it's clear that you guys have a very strong opinion, and I respect that opinion. I would like to vote. Mr. Russo, I'm asking the lot coverage and the buffers to just put that on the record, please. And Mr. Russo is also, I'm offering him as an expert as well. He's appeared before many planning, zoning board, city council.
We know him well, actually. So
Okay.
so-
Well, I have a record, and I just want to make sure I'm offering and doing my job. Thank you.
This young man is going to tell us all through this evening as well.
Jamie Russo, pre-engineering. I've been a project manager on this project since it started. Our company was involved in the original residential design that was permitted. We haven't done any engineering on the site for the solar farm itself, so everything's really conceptual in nature. We would have to get, as stated, a DEM permit. We'd have to do a full analysis of the stormwater on site, and we'd have to show no net increase to the wetlands on the site. We also have to prepare a soil erosion report and plan for during construction. The site itself, around the edges, the panels are approximately 100 feet off the property line. Behind the residential homes located on Dido Road, they're approximately 300 feet off the property line behind those homes. We recently did a site walk, and two of the butters that were near the entrance did approach some of the members of the site walk did speak to how solar would be preferable due to them, due to the impacts of the residential. And just from an environmental perspective, because that's obviously the biggest concern on this, is the permit that was given for the housing development was in the 100 range of homes. And 100 homes, you start adding 3 bedrooms and community setbacks for that, you start getting into the range of anywhere from 35,000 to 40,000 gallons of effluent septic on site, which is direct inverse of the water need, which would be the wells that would be needed on the site. It's probably looking at approximately, based on the past traffic report, 200 trips of cars coming on and off the site, down Dido Road. So obviously, both have environmental impacts. My professional opinion is this would have less environmental impacts in terms of all the septic and the wells that would be needed. The stormwater systems would be very similar to what would be in residential. And the actual clearing on this site was discussed already, but the prior subdivision that was approved, so this is clearing approximately 163 acres. The first subdivision that was approved was actually the one with the golf course, was upwards of 150 acres. So it's very similar in nature to the clearing necessary. The board approved the master plan as the chair discussed, and the worsened conditions of that, making it a cluster. And I know there were some draft concepts of that cluster plan that were created. And that cluster plan, the disturbance of that would have been approximately 90 to 95 acres, depending on stormwater systems that would have to be designed and the septic. So any development on the site, due to the size of the site, would be some significant clearing. It's just a summary of, obviously you guys have seen a lot of these, aware of some of the other components that are designed down the road. And we'll be back and bring all those engineering permits and design back. We came back to the board.
I just have a question.
Planning board
So,
members, questions?
Mr. Russo, you couldn't go over the wetlands because you need a wetland crossing, is that correct? And so is that why all your solar panels are where they are?
That's correct. There's one, the first permit that was given for the housing and the golf course, there's actually a lot of land disturbance already with that. They went out, they cut the right-of-ways out in the field. So it's about a 40-foot swath that they cut. The trail itself that's remaining, that's pretty still clear, is about 16 feet. But you can see the growth that's off the road is very not mature trees. There was a crossing cut across this area that was part of that earlier design. If we move forward with the design, we may approach DEM to have basically an access there more for emergency and utility crossing. But we're not proposing any solar in any of the wetland buffers.
Oh, sure.
We're actually, this whole area up here, or avoiding this whole area due to the wetlands in that area.
Right, because you can't cross them. So.
Yes.
Right.
It just became crystal clear to me. Your dissertation about what the houses would create, the effluent it would create, what it would do to the environment, we're crystal clear on that because we've seen it time and time and time and time again. We've never seen anything like this. We don't know what this is going to do to the wetlands in the surrounding area. When you clear cut this amount of land and put plastic and metal up, we don't know what it's going to do yet, do we?
Well, the ground, if you look at it from a perspective of what the ground cover is, what does the ground do? What's underneath the soil? It's grass. So if this was a grass field, this will turn into a grass field. Well, solar panels sitting above the grass hydraulically don't have much effect.
I don't know.
No,
My
that's-
gut's telling me something's bad.
It's still gonna act hydraulically, and hydraulic analysis, it's still gonna act as a grass field. But you're not putting anything on the ground that prevents that infiltration of water.
Again, you're an engineer, I'm a cabinet maker. I guess I have to kind of defer to your expertise. But man, my gut's telling me something's not right, and it's not good. And that's my issue. That there's no track record to any of this, there's no history to any of this. We don't know what this is going to do.
There's been
And DEM's logarithms on their little computers, when they sit there in their screens and say, yep, Mr. DePreetz, this looks beautiful to us.
And that's hydrology design, I mean, that's,
Well. And one other quick question. You guys been out there and walked around?
we have,
You know it's where the glacier stopped and,
we've driven the site.
for lack of a better term, went to the bathroom.
There's some steep slopes.
Because I have never seen topography like that. It looks like the North Pole.
There's certain
Rocks, that's why I was with Al, we've done 2 developments on this already in our lifetime. And the reason they weren't constructed is because they couldn't afford to get through that rock and ledge and stone and, there's boulders out there the size of pickup
There's
trucks.
boulders, but we're not sure. There's a lot of testing done on this site, and there actually wasn't a lot of ledge. There's mostly large boulders. There's a ridge that runs through the property, along the center of the property. And the southern portion of the site is much more rocky.
I guess my point is, 2 legitimate developers have been to this property and failed. That's my point.
Well, the second one has a master plan approval and couldn't move forward. I don't.
Why haven't they done it then? They've had the master plan approval for 10 years. Because they can't do it. Physically can't do it.
I mean, it's value of the market at the time they
Okay.
determined it. I can't speak to that, but,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
Anything else, planning board members? Anything else you'd like to put on the record, sir?
Thank you. I heard a couple of points about, there's been, much has been made about the clearing of the property. This property had significant pruning several years ago, and it's my understanding from talking to the previous lawyer, it also had a big gypsy moth problem on this. So a lot of this land that we're all worried about clearing is already clearing or very dead or damaged or diseased forestry on the property. I'd like to make that clear, and respectfully, I respect your gut, your feeling, but scientifically, there's been a lot of solar projects all over the state, all over Massachusetts. I have not seen one report or read anything that somehow damages the environment. To the contrary, you talked about DEM, they actually like solar on a lot of property that they can be used as a cap, it can be used as reusable. Cities and towns use it to close landfills, they use it for other things. So there's not been any damage. The last thing, I know you don't like DEM, you made that very, very clear to me, but the last thing.
I don't believe it.
You
They're
don't-
very nice people.
You don't-
The individuals that work there are wonderful. They're our friends, they're our neighbors,
They
they're...
would never approve a project that would harm the environment, in my opinion, and that's my opinion. So I think
You're naive.
we can have reasonable minds can differ.
Yes, we do. Anything else?
That's all I have. If the board has any questions, I'll be happy to answer after the public speaks or whatever, I'd be more than happy to.
Okay, planning board members, anything else?
I guess 2 points. One is, as town council very important, if you're next to the windows, feel free to open them up if it's starting to fit second. The second, the Conservation Commission opposes large-scale industrial solar.
I'm sorry, I just can't hear you. I don't think anyone else can either.
The Conservation Commission opposes large-scale industrial solar installations in town. It opposes rezoning residential property to become large-scale solar.
With the Conservation Commission, I'm just asking, would you prefer an affordable housing project here? Or would you rather just see it left open space?
So I was not here when that happened. Of course, I'd rather see open space if it were up to me. I don't want to speak for the commission because they're not here. But I believe that when that project was originally approved, that the Conservation Commission did at that time weigh in. But I don't know what the record shows.
I did review the approval, and I believe they recommended it tonight.
Okay.
Back then. I read the master plan approval.
Anything your end? Okay, it is a public hearing. I'd be delighted to hear public comment. I would only ask that we have, let me just wrap this up, we have about 20 minutes left on our timeline. I would only ask that people speaking be cognizant of the fact that the points that have already been made, we don't need to hear them again. But feel free, let's have the public speak. I saw a couple of hands. Yes, sir, right there. Come forward, state your name for the record.
Hi, John Lane, 122 Dodgeville Road. My wife and I own the property in front of Brushy Brook. We're surrounded by 3 borders of Brushy Brook. We are for solar panels. We'd rather see the solar panels come in than the 280 houses that was proposed at one time that got shot down by the court. Every vehicle going up and down the road is going to have to go by us. There's nothing that can go up there without coming past our house. So we're going to see a lot of traffic. We're concerned about dust control, knowing it's going to be a large project, it'll probably take a year to build. But dust control, they have water trucks out there. Can they build a temporary fence just to give us some privacy? Weed control, is it whatever they use, is it safe for the aquifer? Supposedly that area is supposed to be a big aquifer. You know, we're concerned with our well, with whatever they use off is going to run down. Back in March 2010, when we had the flood water, we had water coming from the back, like there was a river. It flooded out the backyard, it flooded out, and it was there until after Easter. The solar panels, I don't know what they're made of, but if they're made from hazardous material, are they going to have a bond up to not make this a super fund, you know, 15 years or after a hurricane tears down half the panels or something like that. And then also that the property would be devalued by about 30%. Again, I'm for solar panels. I'd rather see the solar panels up there than houses. Thank you.
Very good, thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience? I saw that hand next.
Good evening. I bought the property. My name is Bruce Reynolds. I live at Maxon Hill. I've inherited the property from my wife's grandparents. The house has been there since 1941, since it was dirt road. The water has always been consistent on this property from the aquifer, the water. Your comment, the water, the water, the water. Where is it going to go? I have a river that runs through my basement. I have a sump. They can't keep up with it practically right now. That flood of 2010, I had a whirlpool in my front yard by my apple trees. Unbelievable. It was surreal. I thought the whole road was going to give up. That's all I have to say. I'm seriously concerned about the water. Really a big concern. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I saw a hand way up in the back, next. Yes, sir, you come forward.
Hello, want my name, Alexander Poulos. I live near Brushy Brook. There might be an easy solution here. On top of Woody Hill, there's fields that's estate-owned. They're already clear, and they're adjoining this property. Why not let them put the solar panels up there and let the state have the property to use? You don't have to clear anything down. They have access to the road. It might be a solution that might take care of them. They can get the rent from the fields that are, or the solar panels that are already up, and the state can use the property to enlarge their parks. Maybe they can work something out. I don't know, just a solution that might work for everybody.
Wonderful comment, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
My name's Eric Fiddler, and I live on 119 Woodville Road. The planning board is familiar with some of my thoughts, but I wanted to put them into the record here. Of all of the, well, let me just back up a second. First of all, I want to thank all of you here on the planning board. I think you've taken a tremendous amount of heat. You've stood on principle, both in this proposal and in others, and you've been consistent. And what I hear out of the planning board in the meeting minutes, and have consistently heard, is what I heard tonight. First of all, I heard, hey, the comprehensive plan is not meaningless, okay? It exists for a reason. If you want to install, if the town wanted to install commercial and manufacturing uses in residential areas, well, then they should change the plan. And they should do that in a reasoned fashion. They should do that in a public fashion. They shouldn't do that in an ad hoc way, and they shouldn't override and overrule the planning board parcel by parcel by parcel, and hang out a sign in Hopkinton that says open for business, ignore the comprehensive plan, never mind the planning board, who are the experts, the resident experts here in land use. And if you want to develop something, you just need a few votes from the town council. One of the members tonight, actually, the planner said, I thought this was amazing, that he could only surmise that the town intended to allow development of these giant residential parcels because there is a provision that allows the town council to override the objections of the planning board to their efforts to preserve the integrity of the comprehensive plan. And one of the panel members here called him on that. I can't think of anything more absurd than a professional planner looking at a 143-acre residential parcel and saying, well, of course, the town intended to allow that to be developed for a manufacturing use. That really is insulting to the intelligence, I think, of every member of the planning board. This absolutely is spot zoning. It's just spot zoning on an incredibly massive scale. The coverage here of the solar panels, I don't know what it is, but it must be 70, 80, 90%. Certainly on all the buildable land that's not wet, they've got every inch covered with solar panels. I don't think there's an unused space, in this entire plan. And just by contrast, the town is debating a new solar ordinance that would allow coverage of 30% of a parcel with solar panels. But these guys are trying to get this through, in a regulatory regime that doesn't prevent that. The town has a certain character, and it defines that character through its comprehensive plan, and that plan is published. And when you buy a house here, or for that matter, if you want to put up an office building, you want to have a manufacturing plant, you know where you can do that, right? I've been in my house for 31 years. It was a 2-acre lot carved out of a 100-acre parcel, right? If that 100-acre parcel had been lying fallow this entire time, I could be here finding out that you're debating whether or not this piece of land that's beautiful, that was previously a farm, is now going to be solar panels, across a small meadow. So I don't know what's gotten into the town council. I don't want to paint them all with the same brush. Let's just say a majority of the town council that has voted for these projects. But this whole idea that the comprehensive plan doesn't matter, the planning board doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if you violate the expectations of anyone who ever bought a house and paid a mortgage to put one of these things in next to them. I don't even understand why anyone has to come up here and talk about that, to be frank. And then lastly, to your point, or a couple of people's points, about we don't know what the hell we're getting into here. We don't know whether the bonding is appropriate. Every single one of these projects, including this one, is a limited liability corporation that exists for the sole purpose of insulating them from personal and corporate responsibility. The only assets they're going to have in the ground are these panels. And these panels, in order to manufacture electricity, as the judge said yesterday, there's a chemical process that converts solar energy into electricity. And they are absolutely full of toxic materials. Now the one up here at exit 2 has 45,000 8-foot by 12-foot panels. I don't know how many this has. I'll take a wild guess and say 60,000, 70,000. I don't know what that is. If we have a hurricane like 38 or 52, or if we have some kind of event, I don't know, some once in a 1,000-year hailstorm like the flood we had in 2010, which was the 1,000-year flood. You know, all of these panels, a lot of them could be broken. You could have a multi-million-dollar Superfund cleanup site there, and then you have an owner who looks at that and says, well, I can either spend millions of dollars cleaning this thing up, but it has no possible economic value to me anymore, or I could just walk away and declare bankruptcy because that's my better option. And then this town is going to end up with a polluted aquifer that runs all the way from here to Stonington. So that's just an example of one thing you could get yourself into, right? So, you know, look, 58 megawatts. That is more than a medium-sized, like, coal-fired natural gas power plant. That is a gigantic energy installation. That's an industrial-scale 140-acre power plant. And they're going to make electricity with 60,000, 70,000 panels that are filled with rare earth metals and, you know, the long list of chemicals that are toxic, you know, in the aquifer. So I want to thank you. I certainly hope that you will unanimously reject this and place the onus back on the town council and make them face the voters yet again and explain themselves, you know, why they would even consider such a thing.
Well, you did a great job, so I'm all set.
You're good. Okay.
Thank you.
Barbara, you had something that you wanted to say? At about 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Have to be mindful of time.
I wanted to address the comp plan also, because I did read the information and I thought it was a bit dismissive and condescending to our town. We decide on the comp plan what we want for our town, and not what the statewide planning wants, but what our citizens want, and the reason we live in this town, we buy houses in this town, and we work in this town. We are happy, we are polite when we work in collaboration with the state. We dovetail with them as nicely as we can, and we do try to do what the state would like us to add to our town. And I think we have always done that for the 26 years that I've lived here. I wanted to make people understand the size, because I don't think you understand what 150 acres cleared is. So those of you from Hopkinton, imagine 3 to 4 times Crandall Field. So if you go to Crandall Field and imagine 3 to 4 times that cleared, those are 160 acres of solar. I don't think you understand viscerally what it looks like and what it will be like in the middle of a rural community. I wanted to say the prior plan on this was for housing, not just affordable housing, it was for housing. Real people, real families, real children who pay taxes and who are good people like your children and your children's children and your neighbors, and they are useful to our neighborhoods. We need roofs, we need humans, not just things, and I think they're of value. And it wasn't just affordable housing, it was real housing and affordable housing. And another comment is Dye Hill Road was just repaved. We just had a bond that repaved Dye Hill Road. Dye Hill Road's gorgeous. They have done a great job. And that property, if people want to sell it for house lots, are beautiful house lots. And I am sure that someone may sell them for 2 or 3 or 4 acres or whatever they want to do. They have the right to do that. But they will make money. They will have, the value of their homes will go up astronomically because the road is now actually drivable. And it's gorgeous. And if anyone drives down there, take a look at what you're losing. Not what you, just what you have now. That's all.
My name is Joe Moreau. I live on 32 Old Depot Road. And
One of the things I wanted to say right up front is the fact that these are not solar panel farms. I hear that often. These are solar panel junkyards. That's what they're going to become in 15 to 20 years. I'm not sure of the scope of this project, how many $1 million, but these developers make 30% in federal tax rebates. So for example, if it's a $35 million project, they make $10.5 million, and those checks are going to be collected in Bermuda or wherever else they're going to live. I looked at a meeting that Tom Buck attended, and Tom made an excellent point. People move to Hopkinton for the rural character of our town. That's really what they do. When I bought my home on Old Depot Road, before I looked inside the house, I went here and I looked at the zoning. The zoning was residential. I bought residential. There's a gentleman, I can understand his concerns with the amount of traffic. I would suggest you Google and look at the hurricane damage to the solar panel junkyard in Puerto Rico. Those panels were scattered all over. The chemicals that are involved in production, I can't even pronounce the words of those chemicals. We on Old Depot Road are on a major aquifer, and he's right, because now you are affecting not only my health, my children's health. And the town council, not all members of the town council, I want to be clear on that. Some members of the town council need to really look and say, when are we going to stop? When are we going to stop? These developers come in and they hit the rural towns, Coventry, Exeter, and everyone else. There's a great sticker I saw from a gentleman here and from one of our councils. Keep Hopkinton country. This is solar, it's not country. Someone brought up a great point. I tried to rent a drone so I could take pictures of these sites. We need to look at what we're doing to our historic town. It's against everything that we do. It's against the mission statement for the planning board. It's against the planning, their required mission. It's against our comprehensive plan. It's against everything that we look at. Look at the fight that probably people in this room put up for Exit 1 a couple of years ago for a Love's truck stop. That's a major aquifer issue. And Barbara's right, what she said. That solar panel junkyard is going to sit there. You're not going to have children. You're not going to have jobs. You're not going to have them spending money in a historic, what used to be a historic town. You're not going to have any of that. You're going to have this thing sitting idly there. And it's amazing how these paid witnesses, I don't know if people realize that, these are paid witnesses that are here. They could have been at our meeting because it's the same thing. It's the fancy Escalades, it's the SUVs that come into our town. Look at the cars that are out there, the BMWs. Look at the presentations. I'm an average Joe. I can't do this. I really can't. And the planning board is in a difficult position because of some members of the town council. And what it comes down to, I hate to say it, money. It's really what it comes down to. And some of the council members is money. And that's a tough thing to tell your children and grandchildren that. Those solar panel junkyards are there because the town got money for that. There's other ways to do this. Exit 1, Hopkinton Industrial Plaza. Perfect. There wasn't any tree cutting. They put the panels in. The solar generated is not sold to a developer. It's to those people that work every day, a 9-to-5 job, and probably drive a Ford Focus, and the energy is used in that development. That is perfect. It's the right spot. Not here, please. Not here. The wind tunnel, my last point. We lost probably half a dozen trees in my yard because of the wind tunnel. If this proposal passes for these residents as well as Old Depot Road, you are going to have a huge, huge wind tunnel. And whatever buffer is left is going to be gone. You did mention it, those trees are going to be gone. It's just, I don't believe it's the right thing to do to our rural town. And please, keep Hopkinton country. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to about the end of our timeline on this particular application. I do appreciate everybody's comments. I do want to urge you that no matter what the planning board decides, I hope that you will go to the town council meeting and reiterate many of your own statements. So the planning board
I'd just like to, something way out right now. Mr. Bill's made a couple of statements that
Can't hear.
and I'd like to correct him for the second time. First time I corrected Mr. Bibble was when he sent an email around to the planning board, town council, other people, stating that the town planner has come out against the project over on 350 Woodville Walton Road. I corrected him that the town planner has never come out against any solar project to date. He apologized in an email to me and others, and he says he was under a misunderstanding. The other day, this week, he comes into my office. I spent 2.5 hours with him, answering every question he had about solar. Couldn't have been more cordial. Thought I addressed everything that he brought up. We shook hands at the end of the meeting. And now I can't believe sitting here what I heard coming out of his mouth. I mean, that was an ultimate twist of my words. So Jim Lanfield will speak for himself. I don't need Mr. Bibler to put words in my mouth. Again, I'll say for the record, I've never come out for or against, publicly, any solar project in this town. As Mr. Shikachi correctly pointed out, these folks have a right to request comp plan changes and zone changes from any town in the state of Rhode Island. They're going through that process now. Whatever the planning board feels about this proposal is fine with this plan. Whatever the town council does with this is fine with this plan. But don't mischaracterize or come out and actually speak an untruth about what I say. Anybody wants to know what I says, anybody that knows Jim Lanfield, I tell you right to your face, specifically, unambiguously, what I mean. So I don't want for the second time, statements were attributed to me that I never made. And I just want to correct that for the record before we go any further.
Jim, I'd like to apologize to you. I don't recall saying that the town planner had, if I said that, I meant the planning board, so I would like to apologize to you publicly. If I said that you were against this project, I didn't, that was inadvertent. I was really only speaking about the planning board's prior disapprovals of other projects.
Well, this is all being taped, Mr. Bidler.
Well, that's okay. I'm just
And
saying, if I said the planner,
You said the town planner, it's ridiculous for any town planner. I mean, we can play the tapes back. I heard it. And I'm sitting here, and it's giving the public and the planning board the impression that what I said to you, allegedly said to you, is, incredible. And I thought I was very cordial to you and helpful.
Totally clear that you didn't have an opinion on it. And
so
I
we
thought
have
I was speaking to the planning board's prior opinions on previous projects. And if I said planner, I misspoke, and I'm really sorry. Okay, I'm saying it on tape again.
Okay. Mr. Bibble, I'm sorry, I was debating whether to even call you on this right now, but I thought it was important to correct the record, especially because we have a town council member here, and this matter is going to be going before the town council at some point in time. So I figured I'd nip this in the bud right here before that goes any further.
And I'm glad that you did.
Thank you.
Okay, very
And I'm
good.
glad that
Excellent.
you did.
Thank you for bringing that up. We appreciate the apology. Okay, planning board members, if there's nothing else to deal with here, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second for discussion, all in favor, aye. And it would be time now to formulate a recommendation or an advisory opinion to the town council. Next.
My recommendation is that the planning board does not support the zone change of this parcel from residential to commercial for development of solar panels. Based upon specifically the comprehensive plan of 2016 on page 103 regarding the public comments that the town gave what they wanted their land use to do. And it states that the residents feel strongly about maintaining the rural character of Hopkinton. The town should continue to take steps to protect the watersheds and rivers. Residents feel new development should be focused on I-95 exits 1 and 2, as well as the villages of Hope Valley and Ashway, as long as it is within the capacity of the natural environment. And so those are comments from our public used within our comprehensive plan. Further, I'd like to state for goal land use 4, it's to preserve the existing working farms, wildlife, and wildlife habitat. The zone changes to support that. And land use 5, to minimize future impacts of natural hazards through mitigation and preparedness, which speaks to several of the comments that were presented tonight regarding impacts of storms and impacts upon the watershed. Additionally, I'd like to state from our comprehensive plan with regards to housing that one of our main goals listed in the comprehensive plan is goal H1, that Hopkinton will be characterized by safe, secure, and attractive residential neighborhoods. And that requires to promote creative land planning for large-scale residential development and to develop and enforce buffers and transition zones to prevent intrusion into residential neighborhoods by future new economic development. So I believe that our comprehensive plan supports denying this application.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Done. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I believe you also need to make a recommendation on an comp plan request as well. I'm sure that'll be a denial, but I think you have to make it as well. I will defer to your solicitor.
That's out of abundance of caution, that probably should be done.
I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you.
I make a motion that the planning board does not support changing the comprehensive plan of this parcel from residential to commercial.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Done. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda. First item on the whole business. 3-lot minor subdivision, preliminary plan, AP 10, lots 28B and 40 North Road, Mark Dickinson, applicant. Is the applicant or representative present? Jim.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant's engineer, Prime Engineering, submitted a letter to my office July 26th requesting an extension of 60 days for the planning board to take action on the preliminary subdivision plan.
Noted. So, refresh me on the timeframe, please.
Yeah.
Does an applicant requesting an extension constitute an implied granting of more time for the planning board to act?
Yes.
Did he allude to that in his statement, or is that absent? I wouldn't want there to be any misunderstanding that by requesting the extension and by us granting it, that we have then painted ourselves into a corner from which we cannot exit.
No, the letter says, "Dear Mr. Lanfear, on behalf of Nicole J. and Annalisa Gomez Kuka and Cortland Investments Incorporated, we hereby request a 60-day extension for the planning board to take action on the preliminary subdivision of Assessors Plat 10, lots 28B and 40 on North Road in Hopkinton, Rhode Island. Sincerely, Prime Engineering, Richard Rayon."
So it would be your opinion that they're essentially releasing us from our timeline by requesting the extension?
Correct.
Planning board members, any thoughts, questions? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to grant that extension.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Very good. Thank you, Jim. At this point, I'll turn it over to Madam Chair.
The next item on the agenda is developmental plan review. It's a plan submission of photovoltaic solar energy system of Alton Bradford Road, AP 23, lot 56A1. SM Trevino Properties is our applicant. And just to keep us honest, you are allotted 20 minutes, sir.
Thank you.
project. It's a 990 kilowatt system that will be on a 5.56 acre lot to be cut out with a total of 1.95 manufacturing zone parcel. Property will require no variances or any alteration from its current zoning. The area, this lot will be 5.6 acres. The area inside the fence line will be 3.52 acres. The size of the array itself is 2.89 acres, or just over 11% of the total acreage. The lot, as it stood, was conducive to the array, so very minimal leveling and grading involved. We performed ground penetration testing yesterday, and it came out with no issues. I've attached in the packet some current pictures, and we go over the proposed landscaping, fencing, decommissioning, and operation and maintenance agreement.
Okay.
Being the owner of, and I own I'm not leasing this one, I'm on this one on Bank Street. The operation and maintenance agreement was drafted for myself. I'll take care of the project as described in the O&M agreement. The fencing will be black fencing, chain link fencing. Again, as the detail shows, with 6 inches elevated for the small creatures. As far as landscaping, the topography of this parcel, at a low point of 4 to a high point of 14 feet above grade from Route 91 off Bradford Road. And if you look at the pictures in the packet, there's old growth that covers the entire site. The only visible spot is the end of Mr. Silver's driveway. And actually broke ground today for a garage, so that only open spot that's visible there will be a 3-bay garage being constructed as we speak. Behind the package store, again, as the pictures indicate, it's all old growth, 25, 30-foot trees. And on one of the pictures, you see the excavator. The array actually begins past that excavator point. So as you're driving by 91, it would not be visible to anyone driving by. The only spot that will be visible from is lots on this future road, and I own those lots, and I don't mind looking at myself. As far as decommissioning, we've taken some of the previously accepted formats and breakdowns, and hearing some of the latest discussion about what's in the panels. I did some research myself just to make sure. And again, I have representatives from Direct Energy Solar that can speak more to it. But as it stands right now, being a relatively new industry, no one's decommissioned these panels yet. We're still 20 years to decommission a large amount of panels. But I did find some companies that can test this or give you email the link. There's a 96% recovery rate, and the remaining 4% is utilized in the actual recovery process from waste to energy. The actual panels themselves, the metals that are in them. The rest is at a scrap value that is of a higher value than the actual labor to take them out of the ground and scrap them. So on a project this size, it came out to a $3,600 total expense to decommission it, which I would be more than happy, whatever the town's desire is, to letter of credit, the bond, whatever you like. I think I've done enough in town that you know that I'm good for $3,600. So, any questions of me or the engineer or the source people?
What's that? Lots of it. Go over to you guys first, then I was going to go.
The only question, it's not a question, it's my opinion that now the other projects that come up, it's all the decommission, and the prices all seem to be, proportionate to the size of the project. I have an issue with that, just from my experience. We don't know what diesel fuel's gonna cost in 20 years. We don't know what the labor rate's gonna be in 20 years. I think they're on the low side. But if everybody else is, willing to accept it, I'm good with that.
I will agree, this is today's dollar value.
Actually, Ron, I'm not willing to accept it. So,
Well, that's fine.
okay, all right, so go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry, Tom.
I'm willing to accept what I said. or-
No.
Oh, no, not willing to accept
It's
it.
decommissioning.
Oh, yeah, I think it's way long.
Hi, Sal, I bet you couldn't wait to get up before the board tonight, huh?
No problem.
Hey, before we even start, I was driving by the other day, there's big smoke coming out of there, what happened?
Fire department training.
Fire department training. Huh. That's pretty cool. They burned the brush for you? Excellent. Excellent. I'm glad to know you're the owner. Referring back to the danger of the panels environmentally, I think what we were talking about before was in a catastrophic weather event, what would happen. And we hadn't, you know, we've been doing this for 8-9 months now. We're a lot more knowledgeable than we were 8-9 months ago. But that's a concern, but I don't see how that's addressable by you or any of them. So that's a real, that's more fuel to my fire of not knowing. So that scares me. The size of yours doesn't bother me. The tree clearing doesn't bother me. I was at the package store the other day, obviously to look at your project, not to get beer. And I noticed there's a pretty big opening there. Can you put some plantings in that area to just to shield it? And I think you know what I mean.
Sure, absolutely.
And Marky's thing in your way, you know, in building the building, and you know that's nice. That was good timing. So,
Which I've letters from both of them.
yeah.
Supporting the project.
Talk to me about another thing we haven't discussed too much on the planning board, and I'm not putting the onus on you because we're going to do this to everybody. Well, I'm going to do it to everybody. So, after these are built, we keep getting told that, oh, they don't need any maintenance, no problem, they'll just sit there for 20 years. Well, you and I both know stuff grows in Hopkinton no matter what. No matter what the dirt is, it'll grow. So, how are these maintained? Like, do you mow them? Do you send kids out there with weed whackers once a year, twice a year? Do you spray herbicides? I mean, what?
I can only speak to what I do, having built the first one that went online last November. I planted a low germination, or whatever the proper word for a seed.
Grass seed.
Grass seed. And I do maintain it myself and cut Main Street. I don't use any chemicals, I don't use any herbicides. That's me. I can't speak to it.
All right. And you're proposing the same for here?
Absolutely.
Okay. And as far as the bond goes, you know, we all do know each other, and, you know, I'm really sorry, but the 3,600 just isn't going to cut it. It's got to be at least 3 times that. So, I'm sorry.
I just went by what was already.
Yeah, but,
Yeah, they're very cool.
you know, projects of that size, we've had them engineered, we've had our engineer look at them, and, you know, I'd be much more comfortable in the $10,000 range, so hopefully you can absorb that.
Straight up.
I'm sorry, it's just,
Actually, Tom, I would go stronger.
Okay.
No, I would go stronger in terms of that's, we have previous projects of this caliber that were at that amount, at like 9,000, 10,000. And so I think that's a more reasonable estimate. If you think that's too high, you're more than welcome to have one of our town engineer from us, if you want to pay for it, have them look at it to see, but,
I'm fine with
okay.
If I can just add,
Jim?
To date, we've had 3 small projects that were done for farms, I believe, 1 acre in size, and they have wired in a cash escrow payment to the finance department. And the number was somewhere around 6275 or something like that. Now, a project on High Street, the High Street Gravel Bank project, was a very similar sized project to this. The planning board previously stated $9,970. Now that, I was in contact with the High Street people today, and they also intend to wire a cash escrow payment to the finance department. So if you want to be consistent with other things, that's it.
Okay, all right. Are you done, Tom?
I'm good.
So one thing, when I read through your project narrative, one of your engineering things is expired. The on-site engineering, it says 6/30/2018. So I would, just as a point of reference, it's bad form.
Okay, we'll get it from the copy.
Okay, all right, just to be, right. Al will be proud of me for catching that, by the way, guys. So, and then, at our last meeting, there was discussion of the road. And so you're putting in a gravel road as the base, according to the town rules, that you will then eventually turn it into a town road, correct? And so with that, you're going to need all of the permits that you need from DEM, the RIPDS permit, and all the Ds and
For that, the subdivision portion of
right.
this.
So if they come back and say, hey, this road's not right, you're going to have to move the road.
That would impact the subdivision of the lots, not the array.
Correct. So by us doing whatever we decide to do, and with the, because you are going to have to put a road in, that you would still be able to move the road as necessary for this other phase of the project, if needed be.
Correct. That's the only access to the property, so the only movement would be 40, 50 feet north to south.
Okay.
It wouldn't be somewhere totally on the other side of the property. We tried doing it originally, didn't work out with the super area. So if they say change in any way, that's the only place I could change it, so it would still be accessible.
Okay. And then my other thing was the maintenance plan did not directly discuss what you're going to do with the swale and how that was going to be maintained.
Okay, so we have Tony Knapp, Monte Engineering, and
Okay. Because I would like that specifically stated in the plan, or so you absolutely stated that there's going to be cut, there's a low growing grass and all of that. But what to do with that, because to me that's a big part of it. If you look at how it drains, I want to make sure that that's maintained so that we don't have, there's nothing like drainage and flood to make your neighbor not like you anymore. So I just want to make sure that's addressed.
And part of the rookie's permit probably addresses it a lot clearer than it does here, which we can incorporate that language.
But
within
we're approving this, but that has that swale, correct? In the bottom there?
Correct.
Right.
So,
Right.
I'll turn it over.
You don't have the Ricky's permit yet, correct?
No, rookie's and DEP. right?
DOT, yeah.
Tony Nena, I'm with Homicide Engineering. To address your question about my license, it was renewed.
It just wasn't in my packet.
It was an old packet that
Okay.
was, I put that together before,
Okay, just,
so that's been renewed.
all right, thank you.
Typically what I do on the maintenance is to weed whack or cut the swales to a certain height, and that's usually spelled out in my narrative of the erosion control, and I think that's
Oh,
on
so that wasn't in maintenance then? Was that in the maintenance section of the application? I didn't see it in the application of the maintenance.
It's on the plan sheet.
Okay.
Let me turn to the right page. So on sheet 6, kind of in the middle of the page is inspection and maintenance guidelines that we do for maintenance and inspections. Just to go through it real quick, usually after a storm event, the swale will get inspected, no any erosion, fix the problem. Maintenance would be just to cut the grass down, about 6 inches high of grass to promote infiltration, slow the losses down.
I guess maybe it's semantics, but I just, can you include that, at least in your property, in the maintenance and inspection schedule, that if it's something that's going to be done regularly at the site to maintain it, I don't want to be having someone else to know that it's on that document, but that it's within your maintenance schedule. Because I think that's kind of important, just so that it's clear of what's going to be done. Because if there is a problem, not saying that it's done for engineering or anything, but if there is a problem, we want to be able to say, well, is the maintenance being done? You know, and this is what the schedule was. Okay? That was my concern. So, Mr. Pennypacker.
I guess I'm going to echo Mr. Holbert sentiments regarding use of herbicides and chemicals. I don't see it expressly written. I think it's true that you're not going to do it. I'd like to see it.
My wife would kill me.
Um,
I'm getting it right.
Yeah, also, I guess that and the vegetative buffer, I recognize that the land trust owns the property behind it. I don't expect them to cut the trees down, but if they talk about that as well, so I'm making sure that the screen is in place.
Could I request that, that be done administratively with,
I don't want to see it. I want it to be blocked from that opening. I want enough vegetation there that it's not
Right.
seen.
but also-
So however
so
many
I'll-
little trees you want to put in there, make sure that they're large enough that we don't see it. Okay?
Give Mark a few trees, be nice. Next to his garage.
Mr. Pennypacker, is that all? Oh, members of the public? Oh, I'm sorry, solicitor?
No.
Members of the public? Okay. So, we need to decide what we're going to do, Phyllis.
So you're asking for us to grant development plan review, and any concerns we have, you want us to direct those to be done administratively through the planner?
Exactly.
Jim,
It's okay with, we work well.
is that okay with you?
But in our motion, Tom, I'd like to restate.
Well, I'm not saying to do it, I'm just
Okay,
asking
okay, all right.
if that is an option.
What do you think, Ron?
I like the project based on Mr. Trevino's history and the lay of the land and everything. He's agreed on tape in front of the audience that he will put up vegetative buffer to his satisfaction. I think we're good to go with this. In my opinion, I'm good to go with this.
Okay. So, Tom, would you like to make a motion?
I would.
Okay.
I would move that the planning board grant development plan review based on the following findings of fact. The proposed development is consistent with the town of Hopkinton's comprehensive plan and has satisfactorily addressed the issues where there may be inconsistencies. The granting of approval will not result in conditions inimical to the public health, safety, and welfare. The granting of such approval will not substantially or permanently injure the appropriate use of the property in the surrounding area or zoning district. There will be no significant environmental impacts from the proposed development as shown on the final plan, with all required conditions of approval, and the proposed development has adequate and permanent access to this public street. Would you like us to include in that motion the four things that
Yes.
so it's clear to Jim? All right. That you're going to adjust your maintenance plan to reflect the maintenance of the swale and the frequency,
Yes.
that no herbicide will be used in maintaining the facility whatsoever at any point in time, and that you will do an adequate representation on your plan of the areas that we'd like to see a little more plantings and screenings, i.e. behind the package store and next to Mr. Silver's garage. And thirdly, I would recommend a decommissioning, the planning board recommends a decommissioning cost of $9,970.
To be,
To be, what, Jim, electronically, what did you say?
electronically,
Administratively?
no, the money.
The money.
Oh, electronically wired.
Electronically wired.
That's all I have.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we are on track. The next item on the agenda is development plan review, the plan submission of a photovoltaic solar energy system, 711B Main Street, AP 11, lot lot 17, this is Kenyon Farm. South County Solar LLC is our applicant, and for the record, they are allotted 20 minutes of our time. Mike,
Good evening.
good evening.
Nice to see everybody again. I'm John Potts from Oak Square Partners. South County Solar is the owner of this particular application, as well as the other one on Main Street, the Hopkinton project. We've since recently stepped into these projects to finish up development. I'm going to hand it over to Dave Russo, who's been our engineer throughout the beginning of the phase of this project, and also in this next phase of the project. He can go over the development of the application, and then myself and my partner, Survivor, here to answer questions on that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Russo.
Good evening. Dave Russo, professional engineer with the pre-engineering. Before I begin, can I push the board and hand out some images?
Absolutely. Only if it's got my number.
So the property is AP11, lot 17. The owner is David Kenyon. The property is zoned RFR 80. It's a farming property. So the zoning code, solar is allowed by right under the zoning code. We were here in the winter during a bad storm and presented this project to the board. So that we're proposing a 250 kilowatt solar in the location, which is a existing cleared field area. There's a few sporadic trees which we have shown on the plan that are within the fence line or just outside the fence line that are needed to be removed. There's a section of trees along the east side, which is hatched in a different color, with a line type that shows the trees that are going to be cut. We're not proposing to stump those, it's not necessary, and it creates less erosion just by leaving those. There's going to be a 6-foot-high chain link fence around the solar development. There's an existing access road that we're going to utilize the same access road, and that's what I've given you an image of that road. It's our belief that when you drive down this road, due to the elevation change in that entrance road, it's really hard to see up there. And also as you go by the side of that road, as you can see in the image, it has kind of a burn to it. So when you're driving by eye level, you're kind of looking at the burn more than into the property. So we feel that it has adequate visual buffer in that sense.
You know, just for the record, Mr. Russo, I was told that before, and I don't believe it anymore. So go ahead.
Okay. There's no stormwater on the site that we're proposing. It didn't meet the threshold. We're not clearing any land in terms of disturbing it enough to trigger that. Its hydrology will stay very similar to what it is today. The ground surface will remain the same. We did, however, prepare a soil erosion report and plan, which was came up at the last meeting, and that was a concern. So we prepared that same exact report and plan that we would prepare for DEM. So the proposal for the soil erosion is that they'll have silt fence or silt sock located along the down gradient edge, which is the east and the northern section of the development. And I'm not expecting a lot of erosion due to the lack of earthwork out here, but it's necessary to have that in place just in case. So that again, that was prepared, like it was no DM, but we didn't submit to the DM because it wasn't a threshold of it.
So you do need a RICDES permit or not?
No.
Okay.
We do need a PAP permit for the change in use of that driveway, which we have submitted. We don't expect DOT to have too many concerns with that, since the existing road, they were operating with gravel and just for the use. That's a summary of the project. We have to answer any questions or concerns before that.
I'll start with my comments, Ron.
The only question that I have, one of the documents in the packet is the 1040. I'm thinking the project is proposed to supplement the income of the landowner to that end, yes? And as far as the vegetative buffer, any issues with increasing that with whatever we advise, or whatever the
The applicant can, what is the board looking for? I'm sure the applicant can speak to that. The role of our
I don't want to see it. These farm things, I'm sorry that you're here for a farm. The farm ones are horrific. They are horrific. I have a 1 acre solar panel outside my housing development, and I have 2 feet trees. My daughter, who's 11, says, "Mom, why did they cut down the other trees? Because now we're looking at the small trees and the weeds are getting higher than the trees." So I do not like chintzy trees and seeing a 1 acre plot of solar fields on main roads. So please, I mean, it's awful.
Sure,
Yeah.
no, I'll just point out that the driveway is going to be more than 120 feet off of Main Street, and the elevation change from Main Street up to where the array is going to be is approximately 17 to 20 feet. So we're talking about, and the area that Dave was talking about that has this, natural berm is basically the entire length of.
Yeah, I was told that I had a natural berm outside the front of my house.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
Well, you're up another 4 or 5 feet in your car, too.
Right.
What's that?
You're up another 4 or 5 feet in your car, so it brings it down to 10 to 12 feet, the visual distance.
Right.
So, I mean, I understand that concern tremendously.
Because these are plopped down, and people are seeing them, and I'm sorry, I mean, it doesn't look, I don't like it, so.
We understand this is a heavy traffic road too. It is Main Street.
Right.
Main Street. So,
Right, and,
we're open to some suggestions, to some feedback.
okay.
We haven't prepared a landscape plan
Okay.
because of going out to the site. We take a look around,
Right.
walk up and down Main Street. It's tough to see into the property,
Right.
where the solar array is going to be landed. I guess, at this point, what I would suggest is potentially setting aside a certain amount of money that we can do some spot plantings along Main Street to shore up any thin spots that are there.
I don't know, spot planting will cover it.
Okay.
A nice vegetative buffer, I agree with my colleague.
Yep.
We all said earlier in the evening, and people in the audience said, this is a rural community. We pay pretty high taxes in this community to live in a rural community.
So what I mean is, right now, there's existing vegetation that takes up almost the entirety of the 60-foot front setback. You can see it on the plans. What I'm proposing is, if there are thin spots there, we're happy to shore them up. We want to prevent that aesthetic. I mean, if you look at where the trees are, they say for half of the border on Main Street, there's 60 foot of existing vegetation. And then for the western half, it looks to be approximately a little bit more than half, so approximately 30 feet of existing vegetation.
Tell me how you're going to do that legally, not just talking to us. Are you going to put that in writing? Are you going to do a landscape plan? Tell me how you're gonna
Happy to do a landscape
Okay.
plan, or
Perfect.
we can also.
Perfect, done,
Okay.
do it. Go over with the tree clearing thing again with me. That's a field?
Yeah, this is what you can see the limit of the trees right here.
Yeah, if you look at the plan, the limit of the trees, we kept the field location, as much as we could in that existing field area. Due to shade concerns, the hatch that you see along the east side of the field.
Yep.
this area,
Yep.
Those trees need to be cut.
So are the owners of this property giving up prime farmland to do this, or is this an unused open area?
It's unused.
It's not hay, no hay farming, no plantings, no nothing?
No, it's just
Is the owner of the property here? No? Okay. That's all I got.
The Conservation Commission has been a champion for farms and for farm viability, and part of it is allowing solar. And the logic behind it is, this farmer is sacrificing 1 acre of this 57-acre plot, so we get to keep 56 acres of open space and farm, and this 1 acre of solar will help the farmer make ends meet. And so in that sense, the Conservation Commission supports small development like this. I agree with buffering, making sure that that's tightened up, and I also, similar to other projects, the maintenance plan is very big on, we'll make sure that the panels work. The town is concerned that the panels work, the town is concerned that the buffers are maintained, that the vegetation is maintained, that no herbicides are being used.
Members of the public? I'm sorry. Members of the public? Okay. So, planning board. What do you think?
I have to agree with Mr. Pennypacker that this is going to help out one of our local residents. If all the conditions are met as they are proposed, I'm in favor of it.
We're making a motion, or we
Yeah,
talking?
we're talking.
I'm all
Yeah.
set.
Okay, shall we make a motion? So, Jim,
I'd just like to mention that the amount for the cash escrow bond on this would be $6,598, which is what previous projects of this size have posted.
I would like to add, Tom, if you make a motion that you would like them to come back before us with their plans.
I'm totally good.
So don't we have to make a motion to?
We do, but I'm not in favor of this.
And then we can make a motion against it.
No. I don't have a problem with you guys.
So, Kevin,
I'm just standing out present.
I need to know, so we have 3 people present.
Okay, I want to point out something that correlates with that as well. The chair can make a motion
Okay,
when he or she needs to.
okay,
So that's not a problem,
okay,
for a second.
okay.
I want to invite the board's attention to Rhode Island General Laws 45-2363, subsection D, which says in part, a decision by the planning board to approve any land development or subdivision application requires a vote for approval by a majority of the current planning board membership. So the current planning board membership is 5. A majority of 5 is 3. So in order for this board tonight to issue an approval, and I'm not suggesting they are or they're not, or they should or they shouldn't, but in order for the board to affirmatively grant approval, it has to be a 3-0 vote, in a nutshell.
I'm in favor of the project. I think it's consistent with our farm viability. I believe that with adding more of the screenings, I would support this project.
In my opinion, this is the epitome of spot zoning. I completely support the Farm Viability Act and the right to the farmers to keep their land and do what they want. We've seen these come before us time and time again. I've been consistent in saying this, and I'm not for it. And I could go on and on about the financial viability of this. I know for a fact that this is a drop in the bucket, and don't even get me going on money.
Okay.
It's not going to help the
Can we ask
farmers.
for a continuance?
Let me see what my planner has to say, and then, yes, sir.
If what our solicitor says is true, that we're going to need 3 concurring votes, either yea or nay on this, appear, I mean, it doesn't appear we would get a rejection of this tonight either.
Right.
And respectfully, I think what that means is for this for this to be approved, it has to be a 3-0 vote. Any other vote or no vote is not a 3-0 approval. So either way, it's going to dispose of this tonight.
I just want to point out that our development plan review ordinance also says that the planning board will make a decision within 7 months from the time this is certified complete. So this first came to the board now in March in that snowstorm. So we're getting, we might be able to bring this back in September, but our agendas are filled up as well, okay? So I don't know, I mean, if you're gonna say you're gonna deny this,
I'm not saying it. I'm for this. So,
okay, I'll take a little position here,
Right,
if I
right,
could.
right.
I don't know what, I mean, I don't know on what basis you would deny this when farms are allowed to do this by right. So even though you might have a philosophical opinion against it, should this be challenged,
I'm feeling bullied into voting yes.
I'm just looking at it from a practical standpoint.
My comments are strictly to make the board aware of what the law is when we have a short membership period.
And I cannot argue legal point with you. I can just say for the past 30 years, we've sat here as a board of 3 people and time and time and time again and voted 2-1 on it.
Well, the statute overrides any local ordinance. To the contrary, and I'm not suggesting there is.
So we vote 2-1. They get their approval unless somebody
If
challenges.
you vote 2-1, the project fails. Because it didn't get 3 votes. It's the same as a deny.
Make the motion.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion, and we're gonna do what we're gonna do, and we'll just, so I'd like to make a motion, for developmental plan review, I would like to make a motion for developmental plan review approval of AP 11 Lot 17. Because the proposed development is consistent with the town of Hopkinton comprehensive plan and has addressed the issues where there may be inconsistencies. The granting of approval will not result in conditions amenable to public health, safety, and welfare. The granting of such approval will not substantially or permanently injure the appropriate use of the property and surrounding areas. There will be no significant environmental impacts from the proposed development as shown on the final plan with all required conditions of approval, and the proposed development has adequate and permanent access to the public street. With the conditions that an updated plan, a landscape plan, showing that we will not be able to see the solar panels at all from the road. And an updated maintenance plan stating how the panels are going to be maintained without the use of herbicides or chemicals in order to take care of what you need to take care of. And with a decommissioning cost of $6,598 to be wired to the finance office of the town of Hopkinton. So that's my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Not happy.
And all I have to say, sir, is that we've seen you many times, and I will be by there to make sure that I don't see a solar panel.
I will as well. I'm retired. I don't have time to go to school.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is developmental plan review. It's a plan submission of a photovoltaic solar energy system, 813 Main Street, AP 14, Lot 47. This is the Hopkins property. South County Solar LLC is our applicant. Mr. Russo.
Dave Russo, engineer. Property that we're here for tonight, the applicant South County Solar LLC, Assessors Plat 14, Lot 47, where the owner is Albert Hopkins. The zoning of this property is it's zoned manufacturing. It has frontage on Main Street. We're proposing, the entire area of the lot is approximately 4.8 acres. There's no wetlands on the site.
Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, we're listening to our engineer present, and it's a little distracting. Okay, thank you. So,
There's no wetlands on the site. There is 2 existing structures that have been demolished on the site. The solar project that's proposed is a 250 kilowatt system. This system will have access off of Main Street. That has been submitted to DOT or PAP. That was brought up at the winter meeting, and the tags we had off the end of the drive, and from that was a section of private. The site itself, the topography, is slopes from the north of the property down towards Main Street. There's a grass swale along Main Street, and there's a culvert that goes under Canachet driveway. And this project, due to the size of the project and the clearing on this one does require a DEM RIPES permit. So we have designed the site to show no net increase in stormwater runoff to that culvert. That was our analysis point. We did that by stone infiltration trenches on the site. And similar to the other project, we're proposing to clear and disturb within the limits of the fence and slightly outside the fence to install it. The remaining vegetation outside of that just be cut and still to be left in place. The landscape plan was prepared, was submitted to the town, which shows over 100 trees being planted along the edge of the private driveway and then along the Main Street frontage also. That was one of the concerns at the winter meeting, so the applicant went ahead and had a landscape architect prepare those plans for the board. The system will have a 6-foot-high fence around it, with gated access for security. Again, we submitted the PAP, that's pending, and the RIPES is also pending. We submitted both of those probably in the middle of July.
Members of the board, Rod?
Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see any sort of a vegetated buffer between Canachet Cliffs and your project.
If you look at the landscape plan shown on the landscape plan, so if you have the landscape plan, you'll see that they have, the landscape architect has a full vegetated buffer along the Canachet Drive and then all along the front of Main Street also.
Here, 1 second, Mr. Rizzo.
You'll have to forgive us, we had 7,000 pages to go through
It's
this
in
one.
this, it's in these sheets. Should be on page 1. Okay, go ahead, sir. Thank you.
I was just speaking to the landscape
Okay.
question.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, this, I mean, it's still manufacturing, so again, similar to the farm, exists a lot of use by right.
Right. I would say though, sir, that that parcel is in a prime spot coming into our town. I mean, you come off the freeway, you go down that little, which they, you know, the state's done a really nice job with that, that's kind of what they've done. You come up and you see this property. So, again, I don't want to see any panels.
Understood, that's why they hired a landscape
Right.
architect to, there's 100 plantings shown in this planting to prevent vacancy.
When? Not in 5 years, not in 10 years, I don't want to see anything. I don't want to see any panels when it's built. Do you understand my point?
Not landscape architect.
Okay,
But
right.
again, you know, plantings, when they do plant them, they're not planting, they have this sizes of the plantings.
I looked at
They're
it.
not 1 to 2 foot plantings. They
Yeah.
but it does take a few years. Some of these plantings do grow 1 foot to 2 feet per year. The landscape architect submitted a cross-section view.
I saw that, but that's like after how many years?
I believe he said 5 to 7 years.
Right.
Which is, I mean, from a landscape perspective, it's very hard to fully shield something.
I know, and so that's my problem with this parcel. And the fact that you're coming into Hopkinton and boom, oh, look at that, Hopkinton has solar here as well. And so that's my concern. And so, which I'm sure you can appreciate,
Okay.
you know.
And the applicant too, and that's why they hired the landscape
Right,
architect.
right. I'm sorry, Ron, do you have? Okay,
I
Tom?
saw the same thing that you saw. Your clips is right there, and there's a little bit of stuff growing on its own. Those people have a right to privacy as well.
They do.
We can add a fence, we can add privacy slats to the fence, on Main Street as well as on Connection.
I would be amenable to that, actually. How long do they last? Those are plastics though, they degrade in the sun after a certain number of years, and then by then the vegetation will have grown. Is that the idea with those things, or?
That's the idea. I
Okay,
couldn't tell you how long
Okay.
exactly, but
okay,
the goal is to minimize risks.
okay.
So if you're looking
Is that
through-
gonna look tacky though?
Well, once the vegetation grows, we would be able to see the privacy slides.
Right, Tom? I have a question about the drainage, because I think the drainage is a large concern of mine, especially with this property. And at the winter meeting, that was a snowstorm, Mr. Russo? Yeah, I almost talked that way. So, and I do remember we had the neighbors across the street, and they were present. And so the drainage is, and so I want to be clear that I want to make sure that we get the drainage right. And so I would like to suggest, not saying that you guys do shoddy engineering or anything, but I would like a town-appointed engineer to look at those drainage calculations just to make sure, because of its location and where it is, just to make sure that we've accounted for the drainage.
Understand that concern, and obviously it's new town's right there, but I just would like to say that DEM will review that drainage, which I've heard concerns with, but in respect to that too, DOT will be reviewing this, and DOT has much more strict on the no net increase to the state right of way, so DOT's going to do a thorough review also. And just to help you out on the drainage too, when we do a drainage analysis, we're not focused just on what we work on. This analysis, when we did this, if you look at this, we look at a watershed, a full watershed, where the water's coming from. This water actually comes up, this watershed, basically to where this existing parking is, it flows down this hill.
Right.
So when we do our calculations, we're conservative, and we take all of that into account. So that, this stormwater, this watershed is all analyzed now, because that's what goes to the culvert today. So when we analyze it, we look at what goes to that culvert today, and then afterwards, we need to show that it's not no net increase.
And that's all wonderful, and like Amy said, we'd like to have an independent engineer
Right.
verify.
Yeah, just because, I mean, when we get the next huge storm, which we're gonna have, obviously, and I have people complaining, well, you know, you have this and I have this, and I just want to be able to sleep at night and say, yeah, you know, we independently verified it, and we had it right. And so that's just my perspective.
For the record,
As is mine.
for the record, nobody designs for that 2010.
Well, for the record, people will complain.
No, I know.
So we should have.
No, I know.
And actually, for the record, we as a planning board have to, because of global warming, we have to know that storms are going to get more and more severe. And there's going to be, you know, it's changing. And so I believe that it's prudent.
The DM agreed with you, because they increased all that rainfall.
Right. Because they probably did the same training that we had to do. So, but nonetheless, so I would, and we don't ask for this normally on smaller ones, but this is a commercial lot being developed in this scale. So I feel it's within the board's right in order to ask for that. So, and the rendering from the plant. And I would also just like to make sure what the view is from the main and the Cardinal Lane backyards. And you showed the rendering of that, but I don't want those folks to have to worry about looking out and seeing the solar panels from their backyard, because they're kind of close over here,
Cardinal Lane.
yeah, those houses there.
This is the road?
No, these houses
Oh,
there.
these houses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're pretty close.
So you're looking for a view
Yeah,
along?
yeah, I'm looking for a view from that guy's backyard across, just to make sure that he's not gonna see any solar panels, because he didn't, and granted it is commercial and they bought where they did and they knew it was commercial and all of that, but, I would just like to make sure that there's enough of a buffer. Mr. Pennypacker?
Nothing specific conservation-wise, though I would bring up that in one of the recent workshops, there's been a conversation regarding privacy slats. It is permissible to put a decorative or cedar fence in front of the chain link fence in order to shield the solid waste. That's in the works. I think that's all I have. I think in the ordinance, state as it is, something about a second floor window for neighbors in this.
No, that was a special, that was a special deal. Okay. Members of the public? Oh, I'm sorry. Members of the public? Mr. Dill?
This is my first night listening to presentations before the planning board, and I don't think on any of these proposals I've heard any provision or any attention to whether or not the developers, the owners, are obligated to maintain and enforce property casualty insurance sufficient to clean up these potentially highly toxic materials in the event of some kind of event or damage and so forth. You know, I say that's even more, maybe not so germane to this because it's relatively small and manageable, but when you start talking about projects like a 58 megawatt project and start the cleanup costs, make it into the tens, I don't know how many millions of dollars instead of $10,000, and the consequences of not cleaning it up could be very high. And I hear nothing but silence on this as a requirement, and I would like to urge the planning board to consider some sort of performance bond or some sort of assurance that they have that kind of coverage and cost in place to defray these costs, which the town can't afford to pay and can't afford not to perform if something goes wrong. We talked about weather events. Also municipalities, when they build bridges and all sorts of structures, you know, the municipal code that building sort of codes that these structures have to meet are much more rigorous than the structures for a private home or whatever, and that's because they really absolutely do have to stand up to extreme events, and that's why they're subject to this. So every one of these people, nothing personal to this particular project, but every single one of these projects that is owned by a shell company, no doubt, that doesn't have any wherewithal to speak of other than whatever panels are in the ground. Those are probably the only assets of the project. In most cases, that's what they do. They insulate the project from any other accountability. I would like to know that the planning board is stipulating that they demonstrate that they have the wherewithal to clean up the mess if that happens. And I'm sure there's some sort of catastrophic policy or performance bond or something that they put in place. So I want to say that. Off this topic, I want to reiterate one thing to clear up something for the record. Earlier I was making comments to a planner, and Mr. Lancaster took issue, and I don't blame him with that. I was referring to a paid consultant, the comprehensive plan consultant that one of the developers brought forth, and I was quoting that gentleman. I wasn't quoting the town planner. I was quoting the remarks of a consultant.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, that's it.
Mr. Calvin?
We've worked with these partners before, and they have been very, very good, very helpful with the neighbors. So this is not against you. However, when the residences on Hopkinton Hill on Cardinal Lane bought their residences, this was a residential parcel, not a commercial parcel. So I wanted to make that perfectly clear, it was residential at that time. Also, this particular parcel goes uphill. If you take a look at it, all the way up. It's almost impossible to mask. It just is, just the nature of it, and you'll take a look at it, I'm sure. And the other thing is Hopkinton Hill Road, which we had right next to it, which the pre-engineering did do, had major drainage problems, major road problems, because it has a very high water table. So I just want to make sure that that was brought forward.
Thank you.
But I do like it. Actually, really nice to the neighbors.
Just to respond to the insurance question, we are required to carry insurance from the utility. Also, as a business, we carry plenty of insurance.
So, yeah, for this, if we have things that we would like them to do, can we continue this? Or are we within a time crunch here?
If the applicant agrees to, you could probably bring this back in September if you'd like to do that.
Because I would like to have the results from our engineer, if they would agree to that, just to give us time to see what they have to say. Just, it seems kind of, I don't feel comfortable approving it if we're going to ask our engineer to look at this.
Yeah, we're happy to submit to any kind of review. The stormwater, if we need to extend, if there's a timeline, we're not gonna.
Okay.
Well, let me make it a little clearer why. When we have 6 or 7 things that we're still concerned about, Jim is more than capable of acting on our behalf and looking at that and reading at it. But with the inundation of these projects, we can't keep asking him to remember all this stuff and to follow through on their own. And this one has 2 or 3 more items that we really want to see back. I want to see your reviews back. And I want to see an independent calculation on that as well. And we haven't talked decommissioning costs, and we need to see a landscape plan. So I'm sorry, but you've jotted down the things we need to see, and we'd love this to continue and you to come back whenever you're ready.
Sure, just to be clear, we did provide a landscape plan.
No, I know, but an additional.
Oh, okay.
I'd like, and I don't
Oh,
know.
you meant the rendering.
I would like to see a rendering. I want to see, as Barbara mentioned, that this goes up, and I want to see where your panels are going to be, and myself in a car on the first day, what I'm going to see.
On Cardinal Lane.
On Cardinal Lane and on Main
I
Street.
think we provided something for Main Street.
But that was 5 years out. 5 years out?
We'll
Okay.
provide both.
Okay, because I want to know what it's going to look like, and I want to know what it's going to look like from the Cardinal Lane's backyards.
We'll also explore, maybe a decorative fence.
That would be
might
wise.
be. We'll explore kind of the realistic,
Okay.
what options there are.
Yeah.
And there's also a question if that's preferable to vegetation, so from your perspective. So we'll explore that, those options.
Is there a preference by the board?
No, I like what you just said.
Okay.
Yeah, but,
We'll explore.
Again, as Barbara said, we, I don't want to say we like you guys, but we understand from your dealings with us in the past that you're prudent and that you follow through.
Yeah,
We're just asking you to do that, bring it back to us so we can. And just for everyone's sake too, in the record, let's not all forget that this was a gift to the previous owners, because this used to be residential. And the previous owners got the zone changed to build a building there that never happened. And now you've acquired the property. So this is spot zoning, but it's a done deal. So shame on the council and shame on them for not turning it back.
Hopefully not shame.
No, not shame on them. It has nothing to do with you.
but it
But
is
just for the record,
Yeah.
just for the record, this was residential, and that's another reason we're being so prudent in the screenings and the vegetation. This is a residential area, even though Canarsie Cliffs is technically a medical facility, but, it's also a residence back there too.
And it's in a prime spot. It really, it's in a big spot, and so I just want to do. So you can contact Jim regarding getting a town consultant to look at the drainage mainly.
Yep.
Do you agree? Yep.
I would ask that the board ask the applicant to indefinitely waive all decision deadlines on this, just to take the pressure off, and hopefully.
Do you need a letter, or can they just state it for the record?
State it right here.
Are you willing to waive, because you've got to come back in September?
We can give lots of, I hesitate to just say indefinite.
Okay.
How many months extension did you want?
We did the agenda for so long,
Yeah, that's one of them.
by the end of the year, is that too long?
I'm good with 2 months.
I'm good with 2 months too.
It's better to be longer
Yeah,
than
that's fine.
longer than shorter.
I also just want to clarify,
Sure.
you guys want to see the RIPD's permit here, or do you want to see it administratively? Or do you want to see it before we review with the town or the independent?
If you have it, bring it.
No, we don't have it. It's
If you
submitted.
come back and you don't have it, you don't have it.
Yeah.
It's gonna make us feel a little better. I mean, we all know, you know,
No, but I'm
this
asking,
is,
do
this
you want us
is,
to
this is
wait?
gonna be Satan that runs downhill.
No, sure. From a perspective of independent review, do we want to wait for?
The independent review will hold more water with me.
Yeah, no, I know. Do you want the independent to review the RIPD's permit, or do you, I guess we'll just.
No.
The independent analysis is gonna convince me a lot more than the RIPD's permit. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd ask the board just to be clear and inclusive as to all of the things that you want these folks to bring to the next meeting.
Okay.
That'll be helpful.
So I would like, can you give us another, I'm in the air on the side of just, maybe can you give us a 3-month extension?
6 months. You're not gonna need 6 months, are you?
I don't think so. I'd love for it to be shorter, just to.
I don't want to have to come back to the board and ask for another 3 months. You know what I mean? So it's better to give a longer time, but as soon as they're ready to come back and they have all the stuff that you're asking for, fine, they come
You
back.
say 6 months or sooner?
If it's 2,
Oh, or sooner.
Okay.
yeah, if you do it 2 months, 3 months, sure.
Okay, all right, 6 months or sooner. And what we'd like you to bring back to us is, we'd like our independent analysis of the drainage. We'd like the renderings from the roads and from the backyards, just to make sure that there is adequate planting. We want to see it at day 1, as well as out. With the understanding that this is a premier plat. And we don't want to see them. They're beautiful, but we don't want to see them.
Understood.
Okay, is that all, Jim? We good? We got it?
How about protect the fence, or do you want to?
They're going to bring types of fence options.
Yeah, we'd like to explore
Right.
a couple things. In this case, maybe a wooden fence might be better, might last longer, do a better job.
But if it falls down, then I want it to put it back up again, so that would be
I
part of
want
the
to put
maintenance
back up
plan.
too.
Yeah, so, right,
I don't want
right.
to keep running around.
right.
And in your decommissioning plan, the things you've already heard us say tonight, no herbicides,
So
et
the
cetera.
maintenance plan.
I think it will definitely make that more clear. That's
Okay.
kind of like the rule that we.
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now we are up to new business. So this is developmental plan review. It's a pre-application meeting of a proposed photovoltaic solar energy system at Hopkinton Industrial Park, 23 Gray Lane, AP4, Lot 13. And this is Hopkinton Industrial Park LLC is our applicant. And just for the record, this application has been granted 15 minutes of our discussion. We normally don't do these time minutes, but just to the unbelievable amount of applications that have been coming through Jim's office, we found it necessary in order to get it all done. Sir.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Attorney George Camoli. I have the pleasure of representing Hopkinton Industrial Park, whose principals, Ray Quinlan and Lydia Texera, are sitting with me in the front row. I'm representing them on phase 2 of their solar project. If If you were to go to Gray Lane, you would see phase one, which has been substantially completed. The property in question is zoned commercial, 27.7 acres of property. The first phase was 1.57 megawatts. It was on approximately 6.1 acres of property. The second phase is 2.94 megawatts, and it's on approximately 11 acres. The property itself is a former cornfield. There is no trees that are being removed. It is not visible from Route 3 Main Street. It's not visible from Wellstown Road. It's not visible from 95. The only place you'd see is if you drive down Gray Lane, you look to the left, you'll see Hopkinton Industrial Park. You look to the right, you'll see the existing field and hopefully the proposed phase two. The land itself is flat. The current phase one that we are developing now, that's being developed, is taking into consideration any and all drainage. We have a RIPD's permit. We will have a RIPD's permit for phase two. The vegetation, there is none. There's a special seed that we put down to prevent any substantial roots from going into the solar facility. There's a fence surrounding it with an area underneath it to allow wildlife to go in and out. There is no lighting or signage proposed. With me tonight, other than Ray and Lydia, who I know Ray would like to speak, is Charles Kovacic of Direct Energy. It should be noted that Ray and Lydia, the owners of Hopkinton Industrial Park, are both the owners and developers. Direct Energy is only assisting them. In the past, we pledged unencumbered all of the property of Hopkinton Industrial to assure compliance with any and all development and any and all issues that could occur. If I may, I call Charles Kovacic. Charles? You'd be so kind just to go through the development plan and what's in it.
My name is Charles Kovacic, Direct Energy Solar, project manager. So we came before you last July, basically for phase one. And this is phase two, it's slightly larger.
You can't be heard. Is your mic working?
Charles Kovacic, Direct Energy Solar.
It's still not. It's not working. It hasn't worked all night.
That helps.
It wasn't plugged in. No.
I'll just kind of yell. So this is phase two. Basically, phase one is being built right now. Phase two is going to be approximately 2.9 megawatts, consisting of roughly 8,600 panels. Like George said, there's no drainage issues on the property, but we will do a RIPD's permit. Basically, we split the projects into two phases due to National Grid's concerns on their feeder lines. So we'll be upgrading certain lines from phase two to be operable. There'll be no vegetation plan on Gray Lane. The customer wants to see the solar panels from his office. He wants his tenants to see the solar panels because it's an industrial high-tech facility. He wants the theme of the area to be, technological theme park. And yeah, go through the whole list, but we can just start off with questions if you want.
Ron?
I went down, excuse me, I went down to there a few weeks ago and saw the property. I live pretty much across the street from there. I have no issues with the proposed project at all.
I'm good.
I had just a question about the screening, but I think you've answered that. So you are part of manufacturing solar panels, correct?
That we are a solar
Installer,
developer, basically.
developer. So could you speak to, maybe you're not the right person, because we've had it a couple of times, people talking about the chemicals that are made within the solar cells.
That's not my expertise.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
I can address that a little bit. If you
Oh,
like.
we'll do it at the end.
I'm with the same company.
Oh, okay. Can you make it briefly, because I don't want to.
Yeah, you asked, if you don't want the question answered,
Yeah.
I'm happy to
Yeah.
just speak on
Can
it.
we do it in 2 minutes?
Less.
Oh, okay, all right, then absolutely, sir.
Don't talk.
All right.
Hi, I'm Doug Tellman, Direct Energy Solar. Very happy to be working with Ray and Lydia. Just to correct the record, something that was said earlier, the process of converting light to electricity when you're using polysilicon-based panels is not a chemical reaction, it's a physical reaction. When the silicon crystal is exposed to light, it causes the electrons in the silicon to move around, and electrons in motion, by definition, is an electrical current. So this is not a chemical process. There are no toxic chemicals released during the operation of a photovoltaic facility. There are no toxic chemicals that are created as a result of the operation of a photovoltaic facility. Like any electrical component, there are some toxic chemicals within the photovoltaic cell, but the manufacturers are extremely regulated, and if there's some sort of catastrophic weather event, I guess it depends upon your definition of catastrophic, but the panels are designed to withstand 120-mile-an-hour winds and significant other environmental factors without being compromised. So by all standards that are put in place by the state of Rhode Island and the United States government, the installation of photovoltaic solar panels is considered to be environmentally safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
Less than 2 minutes?
Close.
Okay.
I do have one question.
So now he's going to go over his 2 minutes.
We talk about a catastrophic weather event. What about a catastrophic teenager event? 2 kids take their father's Buick and they slam into one of these things at 60 miles. Is there anything-
So the entire array is fenced in, and if there's...
Where we're going with this is, if those panels get damaged other than by weather, what's going to happen around the panel? Does anything come out?
No.
Okay, thank you.
The only conservation concern to this is individual would be removal of primary soil.
Members of the public? Yes, sir.
My name is Joe Moreau, I live on Old Depot Road. It's obvious I'm opposed to solar when it's been done incorrectly. This is the perfect project. I went down there with Steve last week. There aren't any houses around. It's zoned correctly. It's not farmland. There weren't trees that were cut down to put this project in. The best part of it is you have everyday people that are working there, and that energy is staying on that development. So that I commend you because that's a perfect spot for solar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Of course.
Ray Clement, Hopkinton Park, along with my partner Lydia. So I'd like to thank everyone for the compliments that you made on our facility last time we were here. And I would just like to ask if you noticed how straight the rows were.
Actually, sir, I have, because I've noticed how unstraight a lot of them are. So, especially the one outside of my house.
1 minute. I have a house in Vermont, sits on top of a hill, absolute picture postcard of the valley. And I went there, I think it was probably about a year and a half ago, and they had a solar farm on a hillside, and it made me absolutely sick. This one, I sit in my office and I look at it all day long. I absolutely love it. I love what it's doing. My tenants love it. We love the area. And when there's something better to put into place, we'll take it out and we'll put it in. We will take care of it. It'll be maintained like our facility is maintained right now.
Yes, sir.
I guess I'd take this opportunity to continue the love fest a little bit, but again, my name is Steve.
Within our time limit, it's okay, you're good.
Very quick, Steve Wheel, 11 Old Depot Road. And I just want to make a couple of quick comments. Again, thank you, because it is a project. And a lot of us residents here in this town who object to certain projects are labeled. We're labeled as people who are hysterical, and not in our neighborhood people. And the fact is many of us are reasonable people with reasonable expectations. And reasonable expectations encompass reasonable decisions by our planning board, by our town council members, and by the developers themselves. Because it becomes very apparent to people a month ago who had no experience in this area, who have done a fast learn to try and get up on what's happening around here. And I just want to make that comment. Secondly, thank you for the planning board. Thank you. I know it must be frustrating to sit here and give an opinion that is contrary to the town council and have it voted overriding your opinions, and how frustrating that may be to you. But I hope I speak for the majority of citizens who live here and who moved here and who bought homes here. Do not stop with those opinions. Stick by your intestinal fortitude when it comes to what you believe in and what this town stands for. Don't give in. Don't let the town council members who are not listening to us override your common sense as a planning board. And so I want to commend you guys. Thank you for what you do. It's not easy in this economic climate to stand up for what you believe in when the money is so easy. So thank you very much.
Yeah, just to be clear, sir, I thank you, but we as a planning board, we're appointed by the town council.
Well,
And so the town council, we work with the town council, we base our views upon the comprehensive plan and our subdivision regulations with consultations with our great attorney to keep us legal. But, I mean, we live in town, but the town council does as well.
I appreciate that comment. However, I don't want you to ultimately answer who you work for.
No, look,
And you said your piece, and I'll say mine, which is the town council ultimately will answer to the voters when this is all done. And so although you are appointed maybe by the town, and I don't know enough about your exact processes internally and who works for who, I understand that will drive loyalty a lot of times. However, I will say this, is that ultimately, we feel like we have to have people that ultimately think they have to stand for what's right and on behalf of the residents, regardless of who they may be appointed by. So thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
But I would say that the residents have to take, just as you guys have done, have to take an active interest in the town. And, we put out our comprehensive plan for people to comment on. Did everyone who was here comment on the comprehensive plan when we had our chance?
I'm sorry.
And so part of it is that the town, I have lived in town since 2001. For a lot of people, that's not very long. But for me, it's a long time. And I like Hopkinton a lot. And so I've decided to become involved. And so it's very great that folks have decided to pay attention to what's going on in the town. And so we commend you for coming. You're always welcome to come to our planning board meetings. You're always welcome to go to the town council and share your views of things. And the town council will listen. But if they hear crickets, they're going to assume nobody cares. And I think they've heard crickets for a while, and that's changing. So I do appreciate your comments, so thank you.
And I'll end it with this. I appreciate that. And you know what? I do bear my own responsibility, having lived here for 4 years or 5 years. Again, I moved back from Maine, where you have to be born there literally to have any voice heard many times. But I will say this, is that I was not involved enough. I didn't follow the local news the way I should have, nor did a lot of my fellow residents who will admit that. And unfortunately, like a lot of subjects, until it smacks you in the face, and until you wake up one day and a neighbor says to another neighbor, not because you were notified by any government body, but by just the letter they happen to get, hey, did you know that we're going to be looking at this surrounding our neighborhood and are affected, that you become involved. And I think, to your point, this is a great thing for the town, because if you've looked at the numbers in the last couple of council meetings, if you've looked at a packed house for a planning board meeting, I don't think this has happened in a long time. And I'm really happy to actually be part of it. And I hope
You are welcome anytime, sir.
Well, thank you. And I hope
So,
not too hard on you.
So no, it's just that I have to watch my clock. So,
I'm with you. Thank you. I
Right.
appreciate it. I know.
Yes,
It's
sir.
time.
Would you like to conclude?
Just in conclusion, I hope the board approves this project and moves it forward administratively, and I'd like to thank the town office for the lovely song.
Yes, it's been wonderful. So,
Ray, Lydia, thank you for bringing your businesses to our town. Thank you for being our friends. Thank you for being our neighbors. Thank you for giving us jobs. This, not just the solar project, but your entire complex down there is the poster child for good development.
Well, thank you.
And I wish the state of Rhode Island would come down and recognize that.
They won't.
I
But here's the thing. 10 years
ago, I said it last time, we came to Hopkinton, we said that we were gonna do this. We were gonna be the best in Hopkinton. And you said you were gonna do this. And you did exactly what you said. You have worked with us. So they gotta come down and take lesson from you and the residents of the town and see what a working relationship everybody has. Because we're not the hometown boy and girl here, but we certainly feel like we're home every day when we come here. And we enjoy working, we enjoy coming to the meetings and dealing with Jim, and we love doing what we do down there. Unfortunately, not enough people see our facility.
And I'm ecstatic. One of my few problems when you were in the phase one was I was upset that they didn't give you the entire phase.
I know.
So that's a miracle National Grid even supported you.
That was
So
the end.
congratulations
I don't
on that as
understand
well.
these projects when we get turned down.
All right, so I'll make a motion that the planning board waive further review, subject to the attainment of all necessary state, local, and federal approvals. Somebody mentioned a Ripley's permit, some other things maybe.
And the decommissioning costs.
Yeah, you know, this is like an addition to the original project down there, which was 1.57 megawatts. Now, the first go around, Ray and Lydia proposed putting aside $98,000 somewhere in that vicinity, which was really like way above what anybody else is doing. Okay, so for a 1.57 megawatt facility, as opposed to 1 megawatt, which we just approved tonight at $99.70, let's say $10,000. What they did in the first phase of this should be around $15,000. Now they're adding another 3 megawatts, so let's say that's 30,000. So with the two projects together, if you want to be consistent with what other people have done, okay, it would be like a cash escrow of $45,000 roughly speaking.
But they've already bonded. Like,
Well, they haven't bonded anything yet, they officially.
okay,
Correct me if I'm wrong, no, you haven't posted any bonds for them.
for phase one.
We have not, but we were prepared to do so on request.
Okay, the planning board can not require you to do a cash bond if they so choose. The planning board has the latitude to approve any form of collateral that they feel is appropriate, okay? So you can do a bond, you can do cash escrow, you can do a lot of different things.
We can propose a real estate bond, the property is unencumbered, it's 27 acres, and you own the property across the street.
Well, I'm just gonna, just quick. The other thing is we have something here. We have assets. We are your biggest taxpayer. We aren't coming in and leasing an acre of farmland and then leaving you high and dry when the next hurricane comes along, or 20 years from now. 20 years from now, that's still a piece of property that we paid $3 million for. So we're gonna clean it up, we're gonna do what we have to do. And I think that somewhere should play into the consideration of a performance bond. You know, we have white elephant buildings all over Stonington. Lydia and I were talking about this after the last meeting. Why isn't there any performance bonds or what is it, dismantling for the Harris building, for the Velvet Mill in Stonington, you know? I mean, those are contaminated white elephants all over Stonington, you know? I mean, I get it, this is all new Wild Wild West, you know, as we see. But we pay taxes here. We are your biggest taxpayer. We give you your water supply. We are here, we are taking care of your town. You know, it's not like we're a fly-by-night. When something happens to that field, it's not left behind. But having said that,
George,
you know, we're
we'd
good.
love to hear a recommendation from your side.
You give us the amount, we'll pledge a real estate bond on the 27.7 acres.
How about a letter of credit?
Letter of credit?
Letter of credit, I'm sure you have that, and no problem.
More than acceptable.
Of $45,000
Okay.
on these two?
Lydia's got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Done. That's my motion. Is it?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Our next item of agenda is developmental plan review. That as well as a pre-application meeting of a proposed photovoltaic solar energy system, 41 Palmer Circle, AP 11, Lot 47, OSD Development LLC is our applicant.
Back in front of you.
Oh, then you have to explain this OSD thing because you were somebody else earlier.
Yeah, South County Solar is
Right.
the project company for the smaller
Okay.
projects that we're proposing. We're Oak Square partners. This is actually Oak Square Development.
Oh.
That should be better.
Okay. Well, names are changing and it's really,
We're not trying to confuse anyone.
okay, so it's Oak Square Partners is our LLC applicant.
Oak Square Development is the
Oak Square Development.
Correct.
All right, sorry.
We apologize for confusion.
It's okay. It's late.
So this particular project on Palmer Circle and the next one on Fenner Hill Road
Okay.
are both zoned by right. This is zoned commercial. The one on Fenner Hill, which we'll get to next, is zoned manufacturing. These are both anticipated to be community remote distributed generation projects, similar to the High Street project that we brought to you earlier this year, as well as the other Palmer Circle project that we brought to you earlier this year. The way that the program works, it's a carve out of the Rhode Island Regrowth program, which is the means for selling power to the utility.
Can you say that again? I missed that. It's the what?
This is a community remote.
Community remote.
Yep, so it's very simple. It's basically a community solar project, similar to the High Street project
Okay.
and the first Palmer Circle
Okay,
project.
but you said something else there.
Yep, it's a piece of the regrowth program, which is the program that
The
National Grid.
regrowth.
Yep, regrowth,
Okay.
renewable energy growth program, which is the
Okay.
program that National Grid implements.
Okay.
As a project that is a community remote project, we have the opportunity and the obligation to allocate bill credits directly to customers in National Grid service area, which is all over Rhode Island except for Block Island and Pasco. What we want to do in this particular instance, a lot of people talk about what are the benefits to the neighborhood, what are the benefits to the community. We're going to do exactly the same thing. We'd like to do exactly the same thing that we did with the High Street project in Palmer Circle. We'd like to offer the bill credits to those who would like to participate at no charge to them. It's a way of us to offer discounted electricity to the community and to the neighborhood. And if the town has meters that we can fit in there as well, we have plenty of kilowatt hours that we can allocate to those that are interested in participating. And we're happy to talk to any neighbors after.
Okay.
So,
I'm not sure I understand that
Can you
exactly.
speak up?
Yeah, can you speak louder?
Sorry, I apologize.
It's awfully hot. It's hard,
Sorry.
so.
So this is a community solar project. It's under the community remote distributed generation piece of the Rhode Island Renewable Energy Growth Program. What we have the ability to do and the obligation to do is to allocate bill credits, discounted electricity, to those that would like to participate. We have a certain number of kilowatt hours that we're going to be generating with this project. And what we would like to do and what we need to do is we need to fill those kilowatt hours. So people that would like discounted energy at no cost to them, we're happy to provide those bill credits. We want to make them available, obviously, to the neighborhood, to the community first, and then whatever we have left over, we can kind of deal with that as we may. So I hope that's getting more clear, but essentially we're offering discounted energy to those that would like to participate.
Okay. This is a commercial site.
This is a commercial site. I'll let my engineer talk about the specifics.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
My name is Jason Gold, I'm a professional engineer with PSS.
Hi, Jason. We haven't seen you yet this evening. Good
Not
evening.
yet this evening, but last time I was here was complete opposite weather.
Right. Well, I know, boy. Woo.
It's either freezing or snowing. I understand we're running out of time, so,
Okay.
and this is a pre-application.
Right.
So I won't get into all the details, I'll just do the overview if you want, and then we can ask me questions on the details if you want, just to
Wonderful.
get through these two. So this is Palmer Circle, 41 Palmer Circle. The existing site is 13.5 acres on the western side of Palmer Circle. Zone commercial. We're not looking for special use, it's permitted by right. Right now, there's a single family house over here in the corner, and the rest of the property is is vegetated, wooded and grass. We identified wetlands in the middle of the site, a river that runs through the southern end of the site. The surrounding areas, agricultural field to the west, wooded lot to the south, it's zone commercial. There's a residence to the north, a residence to the southeast here, and then a residential development on the other side of Palmer Circle, along Pond Beach Drive and Hill. The site is pretty screened now by existing vegetation. It's pretty dense out there. So I'll get to it in a second. The proposed project is approximately 1.24 megawatts, ground mounted, same as you've been hearing, 6-foot fence around it, 6 inches above the ground. Setbacks from that, we're not looking for any variances, anything like that. Grass inside, clear outside the fence. We are, for this concept, proposing a 25-foot vegetated buffer, and that's maintaining existing vegetation. It's pretty dense out there already. There will probably need some stormwater detention, so I have a couple of spots reserved for detention basins. You might need 1 or 2 of those, which we'll get into when we get into the design. When we submit the design plan review, of course, we'll have a permit level design, decommission plan, operation maintenance plan, stormwater report, soil design control plan, all that we normally do. We will be submitting to DM for preliminary determination and RIP's construction general permit.
Just to be clear what we're doing with this application, so this is a pre-application meeting for those of you who haven't been to a lot of planning boards. And so at that time, the applicant comes and sort of talks about what they're planning on doing, and then we as a planning board decide how it's going to travel. So we either can waive it from further review, which we're not going to do. It can be reviewed as a developmental plan, according to our ordinance, or it can be a major development, and major land development. And so that's all we're deciding this evening. They will most probably, depending on what we decide, will come back again before us with more detailed plans of what they're planning on doing. So that's what the purpose of them presenting tonight. Okay, so members of the board? Ron?
I'm good with pushing it forward and I would get the development plan together. But
There's some chunks in the middle there that says potential BMP area.
That's a potential detention basin.
What is it? What is it?
A detention basin, being the best management practices.
Oh, wow.
I can hear you. You're speaking to the group. It's across from that.
Yeah, we can't understand.
We can't understand you at all.
Oh, it's okay. What he was saying, it was a best management practice, and so that would be a retention basin.
You guys will get a chance to speak. It's the planning board's turn right now, then it'll be opened up to the public, so if you would be so kind. Now, this existing house and garage that's down in there, that's part of the 13 acres?
That's part of the site.
So how is it commercial if there's a residence on it?
It's zone commercial.
So that's how it's been?
Yes.
In other words, the house and the garage on a separate lot? Or on a
That's
commercial
right.
lot?
Right.
And that's how it's existed?
Yes.
And it's a private residence?
Yes.
Interesting.
Oh, you know.
No, I understand that, but it doesn't make much sense. What's your estimated area of disturbance? In other words,
Yeah, the fence
area
area
of cutting, et cetera,
is about 4.4 acres.
total?
It's about a third of the total lot.
And you've obviously been listening carefully tonight, so you're gonna know what we're gonna ask for, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
this, if I'm remembering right, this property is fairly flat in the front, but then it slants back up and in.
Yeah, there's a steep slope on the very back edge of the property, but the rest of the property is pretty flat, slopes down to the level in the middle.
So obviously you need all your permitting and your these permits. I would venture to say we're gonna require an independent engineer to verify those.
Okay. What I would like to ask then, well, I'll just put out this question. if you're going to require peer review for the design plan review, we do that before we submit, before we come back. So we don't have to come back to the design plan review and then you ask for peer review. Then we come back again. Is that fit the process?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, buffering landscape plans, you know our decommissioning costs and plans, how stringent we are on
Yes,
those.
you've been quoting ours all night, so yeah.
And the maintenance plan to be a little more specific than they've been in the past in regards to protection and maintenance of swales, no herbicides being used to maintain the vegetation, et cetera. That's all I know.
That's all in our previous plans.
Yeah. I would like a little bit more information about this build credits thing and this offer to participate and how that would be rolled out to the community with regards to, like those folks over there on Heather Lane and Pondview. I mean, they're going to be severely impacted, so I would think that you would hope to get those folks involved in some type of program like that.
Yeah, we'd love to. You know, when we did High Street, we met with the residents of Bethel Village over at the Trinity Lutheran Church. We had a great discussion with them, explained the program. You know, they were super supportive of the project, and we're happy that we could provide additional benefits to them.
I would just like it to be clear how that's going to go, just to make sure that
Sure.
and because these poor folks over here, I mean, Palmer Circle is just getting inundated with solar panels, and I am so excited that you're coming before us and saying, hey, maybe we need to give a little back to this community that's having such an impact.
Now, is that program just for the abutters, or can other people in town?
Anybody with a National Grid account in good standing.
Really?
But you're going to first offer it to...
Just like we did with Bethel Village, we want to get the neighborhood and the community. We want to basically reserve space for them. So anybody that wants to participate, it's at no cost to them. They're receiving discounted energy directly from the utility. There's no back and forth billing. National Grid handles everything.
Yeah, I'd like that. Yeah, I'd like that, because I wasn't aware of that. I'd like that to be included in whatever you present to us, just so that it's clear and it's on the record and it's available so that people know.
It's available. I mean, I've had some discussions with the finance department here as well. It's available to any towns that have meters that are connected to National Grid.
I don't know if people know that though, so that's good.
Yeah, we want to do everything that we can to get the word out.
Okay. Okay, so, Mr. Finnekecker?
Nothing.
Kevin? Members of the public? Yes.
Go here, or can I be here?
Can you speak loudly from there?
I sure can.
All right, then, you can stay there.
I'm Martin Grossmiller, I live at 8 Heather Lane. 8 Heather Lane and Pondview Drive are part of the Little Creek Condo Association.
Yes.
And part of what used to be the golf course, which is now a field. My only objection is, first of all, nobody was notified except Palmer Lane, Palmer Circle, Pondview Drive, and Heather Lane. As the association, we're self-managed. I believe that the president should have gotten a copy of that letter, because we're all together.
Okay, I have a list of folks who were notified, but okay. I think they do within a certain radius that they have to.
That's right, 250 feet, I know the rest. The thing of it is our objection is that they're putting up these farms all over the place.
Yeah.
Solar farms right around the corner from us. All the sound barriers from Route 95 are being cut down. And the thing sits on one of the largest aquifers in South County, Washington County. So the consensus at this point, and we have a number of members sitting here, is we don't want it. No matter what I moved up here 25 years ago from New Jersey. I thought I was going back to the country. It's fading quickly. And it's the sentiment of the majority of our members.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am?
My name is Liz Gore. I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker in Westerly. I live at 12 Pondview Drive. And one of the things that is so attractive to potential buyers is the country atmosphere, all the things which make Hopkinton, Hopkinton, the ruralness of it, the greenness, the unspoiled nature of it. And what I hear tonight is all very nice, putting up barriers, putting up, buffer zones, but in reality, you're taking away the environment. Now, I am a tree hugger, so I will admit that. So, that might be part of my being. But I have a real problem with the fact that, first of all, people or developers are coming into Hopkinton because they see an opportunity to just make some more money. Doesn't matter what you do to the land. If the property values go down, which they will, and I can attest to that as a realtor for 30 years, they don't care. They really don't. They can tell you all the wonderful things about the solar panels, which are, they're safe, and herbicides, no poisonous things. If you know anything about politics and about the world, you know that talk is cheap. And I don't believe a lot of what people are saying about how safe it's going to be. I don't think it will be safe. It may be safe today. It may be safe next year. It may be safe in 5 years. But eventually it won't be safe. Those developers are going to be long gone. They could care less. And I think I speak for not just Pondview and Heather Lane. I think I speak for a lot of residents of Hopkinton.
Okay, thank you. If it's along the similar lines, I don't want to go off discussion, but okay.
Just a couple of things. My name's Paul Boyce, and I live at 31 Woodlawn Circle. And Woodlawn Circle is at the south end of Palmer.
Okay.
Okay?
So at the cul-de-sac, when it loops around
If you're
there?
in the cul-de-sac, you follow it all the way around.
Okay.
And you go through that wooded area,
Okay.
where the river comes through.
Okay.
We're up in that area. Couple of things. If you look at the overall picture of this, early on in this evening, we talked about the aerial view. If you look at the overall picture, this particular project, you look across the golf course, which is open right now, and there's another big project going in over by Old Depot Road. And you've got the Fenner Hill project. How many of these arrays can you put into such a small area? Especially when we have this whole thing with having this rural area. So hopefully that will be taken into consideration. And maybe at some point, there can be some kind of recommendation that we limit the number of solar projects that we have in Hopkinton. Looking at this, there are actually 4 houses along that side of Palmer Circle, the west side of Palmer Circle. There's one on each side of this particular project. I don't think when you mentioned your map, you mentioned it's a big white house with a garage, but there's also a ranch, a brown ranch on the other side of, because the marks are already on the road. The road has already been marked out as to where this is going to fall. And then there's 2 more houses up in the back from there. So, that particular access to that.
All of that will be brought out.
Yeah, I'm sure when you walk.
Yeah, this is just deciding how this is going to go.
The other question, though, is this benefit back to the residents or to the town? Is this the same program that National Grid brought out 2 years ago to find less costly energy for people? Because if it is, that program really didn't work very well.
I don't know.
Yeah,
We just got some more information about that today.
That's something that, we may look at.
Okay.
Because I look at it from not only environmental, but looking at the economic value that the town of Hopkinton has really received out of all of these projects, whether they're commercial or private. Okay, so we can take all that into consideration.
Absolutely. And that we will capture all of this, but right now we need to decide, unless there's anyone else with something vastly different, of the flow of this project.
Let me just address some of the things quickly. You know how the planning board feels. You've sat through this. This is probably your first meeting, I assume. This has been going on for almost a year now.
Coventry Planning Board, I spent a lot of time.
So bottom line is, if you look at the use map, you have directly across this, they don't have your roads labeled here, so I can't tell which is which, but you have a number of parcels across from you. One huge parcel is owned by the Massatucket Pequods.
Yeah.
That's commercial special.
That's behind my
Yeah.
house.
Be petrified.
Right.
The one next to it is zoned, there's a little 2-acre lot that's zoned manufacturing. How? It's been that way forever. Wait a minute. And the parcel that these guys are talking about was commercial special. It wasn't done commercial special for this project. It was done commercial special years ago. So the zoning exists to allow them to do it. We may be as unhappy, not quite as unhappy as you, because you live across the street from it. But our hands are somewhat tied because the zoning exists to allow this. Our job is to make sure it gets done in the best manner possible if this is going to get done.
Is there going to be, you mentioned a buffer, is there a buffer?
Oh,
from
Yeah, that
oh,
goes with it.
oh, yeah, we're just beginning with this project. So this project would, so the way that it goes, sir, is that we decide how it's gonna flow. And then they will come back before us with a greater presentation of what they're going to do.
When they come back, and you still looking for public input?
Absolutely.
It's like a
Absolutely.
But it may be up to you to make sure you keep an eye out and make sure you get to the meetings.
I know. But it's-
Okay, very much.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. But quick.
I think what we'd like to do, obviously, and we didn't know that the whole area was one homeowners association, but we really want to meet with you guys because it's not easy to fight a group of people like yourself. We don't want to necessarily fight you guys. If we can meet with you guys and talk about the project, go over your concerns, and see if we can address them, I think we'd like to set that up. So this isn't really pertinent to the pre-application, but I just want to make clear.
It would be nice if it was done if we decide to do this.
I mean, absolutely, and that's our intent. We'd love to set that up. We did it with, when we were doing the High Street project, which was a gravel pit, which also had a big community interest, so we did the same thing. And we'd like to do that here as well, so.
Just realize that the software company met with the homeowners association, and some of the things that were discussed have never come about.
We can't.
Just realize that's what you're going to.
Sure, no, I understand, but there's ways to do things legally that are binding. So we understand those concerns, and we'd just like an opportunity to meet with you guys and talk about them. And that's all we ask.
Any other comments? Really quickly, ma'am.
Well, if for the developer, if you meet with us, can we go over certain things like the aquifer, the herbicides and all that kind of stuff, inspections, those types of things?
Anything, any questions you guys have?
So you'll contact us by,
We'll exchange info after the meeting.
all right, great, okay.
Planning board.
Well, good.
Okay. So we need to decide how this is going to continue,
Well, obviously, we're going to continue development plan review.
obviously. So, Jim, we need to make a motion? All right, so I'd like to make a motion that this plan is going to follow developmental plan review. And we'd like to, before you come back to see us, have an independent review played by the applicant for an independent analysis of the flood, of the drainage, and also make sure that there's adequate rendering regarding the buffers. For motion. So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. All right, the next item on the agenda is also a pre-application meeting. It's a developmental plan review pre-application meeting. It's a proposed voltaic solar energy system for 21 Center Hill, AP 14, lot 91, Oak Square. Developer is our LLC applicant. And again, this is us deciding the path of this project.
Just real quickly about this particular project, it is another one of our communities running solar projects. We do have more billable hours.
Okay.
That's all. And I'll let Jason talk about it. Thank you.
I will try to set a record for the fastest speed.
I will look favorably upon that. How's that?
Okay, 6.8 acre property, zone manufacturing permitted by right. It's similar to the single family house in property right, but it's zoned manufacturing. But it is what it is. No wetlands, there's a little wetland on the corner here, but it doesn't have a buffer, it's just a forest wetland. This, it's already grass field, so there's not gonna be any. There's not really any tree clearing, it's already cleared, it's already grass.
But it is.
This one does not have as much of a buffer as the last one did, a natural buffer. I mean, it's pretty dense, but it's narrow, but it's dense. So we'll take a look at that. We might need a better landscape plan planted landscape for this one than for Pomeranz, because it's not quite as woody. But other than that, it's very similar as far as ground cover. The wattage is 1.47.
Okay. It is a little sad though that is this the property that has the farmland, the farm? Is this the one that would have had?
You can see the haying marks in your aerial view.
That's next door's property.
No, this too.
No, it's one of them. I really there's so many. One of them had prime soil. Is this tract?
It has. It does have prime soils, but I don't believe it's farm.
Okay. Right.
It's classified as farm, but I think exactly the farm.
Okay. I'm sorry, do you have anything else to add?
No, so far.
Awesome.
I'm good with them going over their plan, coming back with more information.
Okay.
Pretty much ditto what we said on the last one, maybe consider a little bigger setback to the north to be nice to your neighbors, or an extensive landscaping plan to the north. Yeah. And again, shame on us for having this manufacturing land, but you have a right to do it, what you have proposed here, because we have it already zoned manufacturing. So again, our hands are kind of tied. Obviously, ditto on everything we said on the last project.
One thing I would ask about that is, there's really no drainage on this. Do you need it here?
Right.
It's grass.
Yeah,
it's grass.
I don't think we do.
I mean, obviously, you have to go through a DEM.
We gotta go through it anyway.
Site
Right,
suitability.
right. It's just on the ones that it's obvious that there might be an issue.
Other than that, I'm good.
Mr. Manufacturer?
Just primary agricultural soil, stay on site and protect it from chemical and other pollution.
Okay. Members of the public, anyone wish to speak on this application? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Move to have you come back for development plan review, citing the 2 or 3 things we just mentioned.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us tonight. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Next time I come back in a better way.
You know, perhaps.
October's beautiful enough.
I'd like to make a motion just for a 5-minute break before we hear the next applicant. So moved. Second.
On the agenda is development plan review, pre-application meeting, proposed photovoltaic solar energy system, 310 Main Street, 84 lot 25, Maxim Hill LLC. Here of Anthony Del Vicario, applicant. Representative present.
Here.
Good evening, Mr. Navarro.
It is hot.
Mr. Navarro, please take off your jacket, because I don't.
I've been practicing law for over 50
Oh, okay.
years. I have never been to a meeting without a tie.
Oh, but you're not wearing a tie
Tonight it is so hot that I just couldn't bear putting one on.
Well, I think you should go all the way without the blazer, sir. It's really hot.
So if you don't mind, I'll keep my jacket.
Okay, all right.
You are excused. Never mention a word of that.
I know. Anyway, this is a project that was approved by the council. It is now governed, the development of the property is governed by Chapter 259 and Chapter 260 of the Code of Ordinance of the town of Hopkinton. It is a 137-acre site with restricted by conditions to not more than 58 acres would be developed and not less than 55 acres. 70 acres will remain forest. I have Dave Russo here from the Creek, if you have any questions on the site layout. No item number 12 of conditions, no blasting allowed, all topsoil will remain on the site. I know this is probably going to be referred, at least to be referred to your expert, which we are more than amenable to taking for. We worked with Crossland last time. We found their bill would be very fair, so if that's somebody you'd like to use, that's fine with us. There is also a decommissioning limitation or requirement under the ordinance of 264,500. We have also filed a reforestation plan, and with a amount that escapes me at this particular point.
Which chapter was the decommissioning plan under?
Decommissioning plan, I think it's under both ordinances, but it's item number 2 on 259. I believe it's the same on 260.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
270, 250. That's what I get down. 270.
What was that, Jim?
For some reason, I put down here 270,250.
270, this, yeah, it's two, we got here 264.5 is what I have.
Jim, just to be helpful, when we were drafting the decision, there was that discrepancy existed, and so the one that was submitted for signature was the one that was agreed upon, correct? So I understand why you have that.
264?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the right one.
Okay.
It's in the ordinance.
Yeah, the reforestation is not in the ordinance, so that's subject to your discretion.
Okay. So my understanding of our meeting here this evening is to determine the further travel of the application.
Exactly.
Okay, so, planning board.
This is a really large project. It's on a major road coming into Hopkinton. And so I would like there to be adequate time to really make sure that this project has a lot of visibility within the town, especially for the abutting neighbors. I think some of what I've heard, some of the abutting neighbors don't feel that they were necessarily heard about their concerns. So right now, I'm leaning towards a major land development.
I concur.
That's good.
Can I tell you why a major land development doesn't make a great deal of sense? It has different time limitations, and it also has different vesting rights. I believe we're vested. We have an ordinance, which is law, as to what we can do. I don't think that we would be really susceptible to a major land development because of the different requirements. You know, we are governed by these two ordinances. We can't stray from them, and you can't really interfere with certain provisions. And I think that's what a major land development might do. To go through that process, which again, we all know it's a rather involved process. Yeah. But your review can be the same with under development plan review than it would be with the major land development. And you don't get all confused as to certain time limitations which you have to respond to, and also making certain findings that I don't think are necessary. And they can't conflict with these.
I would certainly be in agreement that we can't conflict with the ordinance, but to the extent that there's an additional layer of review, attention that is derived from the major land development, I would very much be in favor of it.
What would you get out of land review, major land development?
First of all, please correct me if I'm mistaken, but under development plan review, do we have the authority to bring in our own consultants? Under development plan review only?
Yeah, under development plan review, you have the obligation basically to chart the further travel of this case, and you can either dismiss it, continue it under development plan review, or because of its scope, potential impact on the town at large over a wide area, you have the authority to bump it up to a major land development review under the subdivision regulations for a major land development project. So that's one of the things you can do on a project that would be a legitimate thing to do on a project of this size.
I agree, the question was, I know we have that authority under the subdivision regulations. My question is, do we have that authority if this stays under development plan review?
Well, you are, right now, you are within the development plan review ordinance.
Correct.
And within that ordinance, the ordinance states that you may review it as a major land development project.
No, I think our question
Understand
is,
that. Under the subdivision regulations, we have the authority to bring in our own consultants at the applicant's expense.
Right.
Under the development plan review ordinance, do we have that same authority?
Issues.
I've listened to Ben very carefully, and, you know, I wish I could be a little more diplomatic. Maybe I would have been 3 hours ago. But I was very, very, very disappointed in our council for granting this zone change. Kudos to you for getting it.
Thank you, I think.
No, seriously, you know, you got it, wonderful. Now we're where we're at. So then I get the package day before yesterday. I was on vacation, and I read through. It's not funny. I read through chapter 259 and 260, and I had to read it twice. I couldn't believe what the council did for you. The council basically took every tool out of our hands and gave it to you up front. So I hear you loud and clear about not going into, you know, major land development, because what are we going to do? Sit here and look at each other? You've been given everything. The council's handed it to you. And I'm speechless. I'm speechless. I couldn't believe it when I read it. I had to read it twice. I don't even, it's terrible.
My point.
And again, kudos to you. You know, I mean, you own the land, the council's handed you an early Easter basket, Christmas present. So, I'm not for spinning our wheels. After I was reading this, I was listening to you talking about major land development, and it is a major land development, nobody's going to disagree about that, but the council's already decided. They've decided all the bits and pieces of it. I mean, we could beat you up on a few buffers, you still can't go below 55 acres, they've given it to you. They've set the decommissioning cost. Why are we here?
Not exactly my point, but.
I know.
But I think we end up.
Well, I said that 3 hours ago, I might have said it a little nicer. And I'm not unhappy with you guys, I don't blame you at all. I'm a businessman too. You know, but we sit here trying to protect the town, the townspeople, the environment, blah, 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 everything under the sun. And our hands are tied behind our backs now on this one. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you can still go, as Jim said, you can still go to the major plan review with the understanding you can't undo any of the
I don't need to practice.
Conditions that are in the ordinance. But it's certainly within your discretion to go either way on the next step.
Jim, recommendation?
I wouldn't go so far as Tom as to say that the council has rendered major land development review useless. I think there is still benefit to be had by going that route. The planning board still has a degree of discretion in shaping this project a little bit further, and especially listening to the residents. they're gonna have to be notified twice. You got, at the master plan, you have a public information meeting. At the preliminary plan, you have a public hearing. These people have to be notified by certified mail, return receipt requested. So if there's any doubt in anybody's mind as to how the neighbors are gonna feel about this, as there was at the council level when they changed the zone, then we'll certainly get that clearly defined at the outset. And so, whatever way, I think it's perfectly legitimate to do this as a major land development project. You look at it, look at the size of it, you look at, again, as Amy just said, it's on a major road, it's got everybody, if it's gonna be seen, it's gonna be seen by a lot of people.
Right.
And it's right at the entrance to the town. And I think it has a significant impact on the town that it should be reviewed at the highest level possible, I would say. And you do have a lot of options, not to negate what the town council did, but certainly to further shape the project, in my opinion.
And you know, I would say, Jim, is that obviously the applicant wants to be a great neighbor. And if they would get a lot of input from their neighbors, perhaps they would be willing to work with us with regarding to maybe to shape it. I know they got what they got, but I mean, I would hope that, you know, an applicant who has done such business with Hopkinton, that they would take into consideration the concerns that might come up from a neighbor. If there wasn't, I don't want it to be seen as that we are railroading this down fast and furious on the town of Hopkinton, and they don't have a chance to voice their concerns.
And also too, under the development plan review ordinance, as I mentioned earlier tonight, the planning board only has 7 months. They have to make a decision on this within 7 months if you go down the development plan review route. Whereas with the major land development project, you have a longer period of time to really take your time, put some thoughtful shaping into this, and let it go that way. And there's still some rigid timeframes for the planning board to make decisions on this. You can't just go into the major land development and then start fiddling and diddling with it forever. I mean, you have to make decisions on the master plan within a certain length of time. So it does give the applicant a degree of certitude as to how that application is going to be handled. Master, preliminary, and final. There is an end to it. It's not open-ended. So I guess the question is, do you think, does the planning board think that they can do what they need to do with this project, shaping it within 7 months, unless the applicant agrees to an extension, which remains subject to question. So I don't know if it,
I'm going to continue to side with Amy on the recommendation of the regional land.
May I just add that we did the Pelican application, which was larger, without development, without a major land development. We did it with referral to your expert, which we funded, and we made some changes along the way. And you're right, we do want to be a good neighbor. We're landscaping the devil out of this project, so no one will see it from the road. And we've offered to be subject to monthly inspections during construction and yearly inspections thereafter. If something happens that you don't like, the neighbor doesn't like, we'll fix it. But I think referring this as a land development project makes no sense to me. And what it does, as a matter of fact, it delays us. It delays us. We're going to be longer going through a major land development program than we would by keeping a development plan. Might I suggest that we try referring it to Crossman or whoever you wish to use, and if that doesn't work out, then you can refer it to and change the process to a major land development. We've already scheduled a meeting with one of the neighbors to explain the project to them. And we are trying to be good neighbors.
if I can ask, where are you at now with respect to National Grid? Do you have you done a feasibility study? Do you have an interconnection agreement in place with National Grid? Where are you at with National Grid?
Mr. Delacari. We have a conditional ISA approval. Okay, I expect to be making a payment of $160,000 in the next month or so to start the engineering process for the interconnection. So we yes, I have an approval from National Grid, yes.
And we have an approval from DEM on the freshwater. And the drainage is important. We don't mind the drainage being reviewed at all.
And we had a DOT.
Okay. So, planning board members, what do you think? I'm with you.
As am I.
Might be unanimous.
Okay, so on
I
this,
would think if I could just add a little.
of course, please.
Okay, a project of this size and dealing with the people we're dealing with, who I have faith in, a little bit more scrutiny won't hurt anybody. It'll help in the long run. When it's all said and done, I say, okay, you guys were right, thanks for coming. Or we find something else that we don't agree with.
Can rectify. But I concur. So, a little bit of guidance, if I may. I may have floundered at this point on the last go-around, but does this require a vote? This
Yes.
direction? Yes?
Yes.
So, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to review this project as a major land development in accordance with the Town of Hopkinton Land Development and Subdivision Regulations.
Second.
Motion, second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Done.
I'm hoping for a cooler evening when I see you again.
Next item on the agenda. Solicitor's report. Next item on the agenda.
You did a wonderful job.
Correspondence and updates. Anything from the public comments? Apparently, the public. Next item